Sì, ok, va bene. Io vi sento benissimo, tutti quanti. Sì, ho capito.
Am I supposed to say something?
No.
Oh, ok. Yeah. Dove dire qualcosa? Va bene, ok. Ok. All right. But
Ok.
All right, let's see here.
I could learn Italian this way. See.
Say something, Mohammed. Keep talking, keep talking. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I hope you guys are good. All right. There. I think we're good. Yeah, we just a little bit loud. Maybe take one ear off so you can hear the room. Keep one ear on so you can hear the translation.
No, I can do this.
But can you?
Where's my phone?
Your phone is downloading the language.
Oh, okay.
If you were connected to VPN, so you had lag.
Okay. We're good. I can speak. Say something.
Vi sento bene, benissimo.
Yeah, we can start. We're good.
Rodolfo,
Ok,
alzati
Prego.
inizia a spiegare. Se vuoi una lavagna, puoi usare
How are we starting? Are we starting with me?
No.
Yeah.
William, how would you like to start? You would like Jack to start or
I actually would like for Rodolfo to introduce himself.
Ah, ok, grazie. Come volete, io vorrei, non lo so, prima l'ospite d'onore, se per rispetto a Jack vorrei che iniziasse lui per primo, poi regolatevi.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay.
Yes.
Ok.
All right, let's start. Okay, so yeah, the first one, can we all see? Can you see the board? Stand up. I'm gonna use the board.
yeah, I'll change it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let me know if you can see it. Yeah, a little bit higher.
And you're filming it, right? So this we could use.
Got it.
Before you start, Jack, I just wanted to mention that there's one additional person coming.
Speak louder.
There's one additional person coming who should be here in another 30 minutes.
Sure.
And his name is Elijah Brown, and he's a colleague of Rodolfo.
Yeah.
And so he will come in and he has some additional things to say
All right.
after Rodolfo.
Look, we can always review.
Yes, okay.
You can always review. Okay, so
I'll get out of your way.
are we ready?
You ready? Go for it. Paint the
Okay.
box. Ready? Good.
Wait, I need what happened to the black pen? Is there black pen?
Right on the left hand.
They're red, black, everyone underneath.
Black. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, so what? Einstein's. Can you see this?
Get the jacket.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can't see. You can't see. It doesn't show the. Can you see the writing?
A little bit.
It's. I. Can you see the writing? Let's try to get it. Yeah,
Not very well.
Not very well.
We switch off.
Oh, good.
Yes.
We'll start.
Yeah, the reflection.
You know, somebody maybe should, with an iPhone, should also take pictures of the screen independently. Maybe somebody with an iPhone should take pictures of the screen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just go and I'll fix it.
Okay, yeah, you get snapshots of the screen because then you could put it in the. Okay, Einstein's. Should we start?
Yeah.
Tell me when.
Go ahead.
Are we going?
Yes.
Okay. You'll edit, right? You're going to edit some of the noise. You'll edit. Okay. Okay. What's happening now?
Don't worry. Just go.
Okay. Einstein's general relativity is incomplete. Is incomplete. Therefore, almost everything that's being published since 1915, partially correct, but is seriously incomplete, including Hawking-Penrose singularity theories, black holes, everything. It's not their fault because people didn't know. And the issue is the following. Einstein was not a good mathematician in his own words. He was a brilliant engineer, intuition, and his special relativity. If you look at his 1905 paper on special relativity and the electrodynamics of moving bodies, you'll see it's all done like an engineer. Like he was a patent clerk, where he has clocks moving in trains and stuff like that. Fantastic what he did, okay? And but there was, if you look at Einstein's 1905 paper, it's very the equation. It's pretty clumsy. It's not elegant. Of course, the results are profound. But so what happened? Einstein had a teacher named Hermann Minkowski, and it was Minkowski who was the group theorist and made the Minkowski space-time and found the Lorentz group, all that kind of stuff. The way that theoretical physicists think of the problem today. So now, Einstein, when he did special relativity, and gravity was missing. There was no gravity. He tried to fit gravity in. There are various ways there. You can try to fit Newtonian gravity into special relativity, but it never works. Things that don't agree with experiment. Okay. So it took Einstein 10 years of struggle, 1905 to 1915. Fortunately, had two mathematical friends who helped him, and he had to learn what's called the tensor calculus. All right. It's 1915, and now it turns out he had a colleague, Hermann Weyl, who was a brilliant mathematician, also pretty good, very smart guy. And actually, Hermann Weyl, but because they were communicating, it wasn't. Hermann Weyl actually completed Einstein's field equation maybe a couple of weeks before Einstein, but Weyl did, as a gentleman, held off publication. So Einstein, because Einstein did deserve the priority. Okay, so we have this equation. G mu nu, I'll explain it, is 8 pi big G c to the 4 T mu nu. Can you see this? Yeah, be good to get screenshot. The left side of this equation is the gravitational field. In UAP, it'll be the warp field, okay? The right side of this equation, okay, now Einstein, the left side of this equation, Einstein called it marble, G mu nu, the gravity, the tension. He called that marble. He called this part, the source, wood. It was empirical. The capital T mu nu is called the stress energy tensor of the material. Okay, and what it is, what you do today in physics, what every theoretical physicist learns or should learn, is that you have something called the action principle, Feynman, Schwinger, and it goes back. It's the calculus of variations, and you compute what's called the dynamical action, which includes everything you know about the material and also the geometry of space-time, and from that, it's like in calculus, maximum, minimum, critical point, maximum, minimum. You find kind of an optimal path, which is the path of least action. And that's your classical field equation. That's what this thing sort of corresponds to. All right. Now, the problem is the following. Einstein is 1915. There was no quantum mechanics then. It could be another 10 years before. Think what was happening. Niels Bohr was in Birmingham, or is it wherever Kelvin had? Was it Kelvin? I forget. Okay. In any case, Bohr was England. They were doing scattering of I guess electrons off nuclei, and they found wide-angle scattering. In any case, they came up with the Bohr model of the atom. That, say, for hydrogen, there's a tiny nucleus, 10 to minus 13 centimeters, and the electron orbit is 10 to minus 8 centimeters.
Alpha scattering.
Yeah. So, all right. So it was very primitive, and they had to quantize the orbits. Okay, now, but it's the speed of light in vacuum that everybody uses. Speed of light in vacuum, which is kind of weird if you just think about it, because this is talking about how the stressed energy tensor inside a material creates the local gravity field, which then propagates outward. Why are you using the speed of light in vacuum there? When shouldn't you use the speed of light inside matter? Now, the various arguments why they use the speed of light, and I claim they're all bogus. They're all confused. They're all I could disprove every one of them. Okay, rigorously. All right. The other thing is that Einstein, when he got his equation, he had to make it fit Newtonian gravity, Newton's theory. And that's curve fitting. It's like fitting a curve, from data, which is fine. And so that's how he came up with the 8 pi. Why is it 8 pi? Why is it c to the 4? Those are dimensional analysis. You have to have the dimensions right. And I should say something about the dimensions. The Einstein curvature of space-time has the units of 1 over area. So 1 over, I'm only going to use MKS. I'm only going to use engineering units. And there's good reason for that. You'll see why later on. I'm using MKS, SI, European units. So the physical dimension of gravity field, of the curvature field, the warp field, is 1 over area, 1 over square meters. That's what it is. The physical dimensions of the stress energy tensor, that's energy over volume, energy density, energy over volume. So that'll be joules over meters cubed. Therefore, this thing, the reason it's c to the 4, because Newton has its own. Actually, it's pretty interesting. What is the dimensions of Newton's big G? And actually, this is going to be important. The dimensions of that, it's 1 over mass density times frequency squared. Hertz, I'll call it Hertz. The best way to think of Newton's constant, it's the reciprocal of the density of the mass. So that'd be so it's meters cubed in the numerator, divided by kilograms, and then the square of the hertz. Okay. So what happens? Guess what now? So what happens? And this is all dimensional, all engineering stuff. Engineers know how to do this, right? And by the way, I should say, when I went to Cornell in the 1950s, my professors were the guys who built the atomic bomb, right? Hans Bethe, and they were top theoretical physicists, but also they had practical problem. They had to build this bomb in 3 years, right? So everything was engineering. And I remember Beta and Morrison, all these guys said, more physics, less math. Okay, and you got to be really careful about you. In fact, let me tell you that this is actually interesting piece of history because it's being recorded. Phil Morrison was kind of a Renaissance man. Phil Morrison was the assistant to Hans Bethe in the Manhattan Project, and he could calculate things like almost instantly, sort of like Feynman. Was able. The whole trick in doing fast estimates, and also Bethe would astound people how quickly do an order of magnitude calculation of some complicated thing.
Enrico Fermi.
Yeah, and it was like, they were all very close to Fermi. That's right, yeah, Fermi, yeah. They were very close, and Fermi was very important, yeah. But the reason they do it, it's very simple. You use engineering units, keep everything explicit, and just do your dimensional analysis, which is, and then you get the basic equations sort of pop out simply by dimensional analysis. What you don't get are the dimensionless numbers, the coefficients that multiply them. That's what experiment gives you. The experiment gives you the numbers. Okay, so now when you do the dimensional analysis on the coupling, this is Einstein's general relativity. The coupling, it turns out the dimensions are 1 over force, newtons, reciprocal newtons. So the coupling constant here, 8 pi newtons g over c to the fourth, that's 1 over a newton. And guess what that is? That's actually a meter divided by a joule. In string theory, it's the reciprocal string tension. String theory, all that fancy Witten, stuff. Right? Now, what's that telling you? What it's telling you when they say gravity is very weak, okay, what they mean is space-time is very stiff. Think of it like electrical. It's almost like Ohm's law. A quick way to think of think of it as Ohm's law. Think of this. Think of the gravity field. The curvature field is the current, the amperes. Okay, the stress energy tensor. This is the way it should be taught, actually. The stress energy tensor is the voltage. Okay, and the coefficient is 1 over the resistance. Now, in MKS units, 1 over the resistance is like a number like 10 to the minus 43. 10 to the minus 43 is the coupling. But but that means the resistance is very big because this is in the denominator, right? So it means space-time is very stiff. That's the problem. Otherwise, if we could manipulate space-time, we can do anything. We can time travel. In fact, what we see the UAPs doing is that they're managing to lower the effective resistance of space-time, which means you can use a small amount of energy density to get a big warping effect. And that's what we see happening. Now, I'm going to say, because this is going to be, you're going to broadcast this, right? Our government, well, we know our government, the United States government, sorry, not the Italian government. The United States government is extremely stupid. They are incompetent, and because of their stupidity, they are losing the race. Putin, I was interviewed by Russians twice when Obama was the president. They came from Channel 5 in St. Petersburg. That station is owned by a close oligarch friend of Vladimir Putin. And this was because of a talk I gave on all this, what I knew back in 2011 at the DARPA NASA 100-year Starship lecture, where I first said you have to have metamaterials, and it's warp drive. The UFOs are warp drive, all that stuff. Eric Davis, by the way, was there, and he tried to shoot me down because I guess, I don't know why, I think because he thought I was exposing maybe a secret, but this is, Any case, the Russians were there, and this was a time when the there was the reset. I mean, Hillary Clinton going over there. It was not like now. Things were pretty friendly. So there were plenty of Russians there. Okay, KGB, they were all there, and the meeting was organized by Pete Warden, retired Air Force Space Command general with a PhD in astrophysics from the University of Arizona, and he invited me. In fact, I helped them. I helped organize the whole thing. All right, so this is all already. We're talking not only physics, we're talking geopolitics and counterintelligence. All that kind of stuff. Okay, so the first time the Russians came to San Francisco with a video crew, it was actually two of them, but got an interviewer and a cameraman. I talked about what I'm telling you now to the extent that I understood it back then. I now understand in much more detail than I told them. So they took about 3 or 4 hours of video, and then they said that they would send me a copy of the video. Right? Never heard from them. They got the video, but shortly after it, that's when Vladimir Putin. That's when Putin, if you remember, he came out and said the Russians were going to get by 2030 teleportation and all this kind of science fiction stuff, which was exactly what they interviewed me on. Okay. And so that was interesting. And so in any case, the years went by and it's now early June of 2016. And I guess what? I get a call from the Russians again. It's funny. This is when Trump is running for president. He's not president yet. I happen to have friends who are close to Donald Trump. This guy Michael Savage on the radio and stuff like that. In any case, so the Russians come, and I thought they were going to ask me about physics. No, they started asking me about Donald Trump. It was his birthday 2 weeks from the time. It's his birthday. And they said they're doing this. Now, why? I was told, I said, okay. But they knew, see, they're very good. The Russian intelligence is, they're competent. Okay. They knew I had a connection, indirect connection with Trump through Michael Savage, who by that, he was like number 3. It was Rush Limbaugh, and he had like 15 million people. So they asked me about what did Donald Trump think about Vladimir Putin? They asked me. They said, "What does Donald Trump think about?" So I was some kind of expert. Okay, went along with it. Played. Okay, I'll play. What did Donald Trump think about NATO? And stuff like that. And about his policy toward Russia, things. Okay, so and then they did send me that video. You can see it. In fact, you can see it on the internet. And what it is, it's a campaign. It's about Trump's birthday, and he's surrounded by glamorous women, and all this kind of stuff. And it's about a 10-minute thing. And I am the only other American that is cited that I appear twice, very short, and it's all in Russian, but I'm introduced as a prominent American political analyst. Interesting, just because I know the people in town. All right, so all right. Oh, I was also told by 2 different Russians. I was told that Vladimir Putin actually, as a teenager, he was sort of interested in physics, and I was told that Vladimir Putin tracks Jack Sarfati's thoughts on this. I don't know if it's true. 2 separate Russians basically told me this. All right, now we also have, and I'm not going to mention, I also have a couple of contacts in the Central Intelligence Agency, who I've been told already back in Trump's first term briefed Trump on all this stuff, and maybe I guess the Russians. Okay, and in the second term, of mutual friends, one who is allegedly pretty, he actually lives near Mar-a-Lago, a Florida guy, someone who's helped finance Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and very close to Susie Wiles, the Chief of Staff. In any case, the upshot was I was supposed to be flown down to Mar-a-Lago on the 8th of August of last year. That's the Alaska thing. Then I was supposed to also go down there on the 13th of October, and something happened then. I was told, however, that our friend that William knows he is. William has visited him. That that Trump has been briefed on this stuff, but how much he's briefed, I don't know. The point is this: that the people, the American people, Louis Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, who is it, Ross Cohart, all the people who are George Knapp, Coast to Coast, all these people who are controlling the narrative, or even the Soul Foundation. They mean well, nice people, they're stupid. Yeah, they're smart, certain things. But when it comes to physics, they don't know physics. Okay? You have Louis Elizondo did this book. The guy could have spoken to me. I mean, the book is ridiculous. Every physicist laughs at it, how stupid it is. It's like idiocracy, dumb and dumber. Okay? And they're all doing it even now. Even now, dumb and dumb, stupid people. Meantime, Putin's people invite me to Moscow in July 3rd, 2023. I didn't go because that's when Prigozhin was doing his thing, and it was supposed to be a Zoom. In any case, my point is that the American politicians and the intelligence agents, there's certain things, I don't want to be too insulting, but they're not doing a good job. They are misinforming the president. I don't know what idiots have been talking to Trump about. You don't have astronauts there. Yeah, they're good, but astronauts, they're engineers. They don't know. So the point is, yes. When David Grush, all these people, the whistleblowers, what they say is true. We know independently. We know that most of what they say. Yeah. Are they retrieved craft? Yes, they were retrieved craft. Are they live alien? Were they live? Yes, they were live aliens. Are the Greys real? Yes, the Greys are real. Are there these plasma things? Yes, those are all real. Okay, we know a lot of that stuff. Okay. Now, the question is, they know, but they're like monkeys around the monolith in the opening of 2001. In science, you have evidence, right? Yeah, and all these stupid people, if you hear somebody say, you gotta follow the data, it's like a monkey, you have data, but to a Hottentot, you can show a native a photograph, a clear photograph, and the native sees random noise. If you don't have the right conceptual framework, a filter, you don't know how to interpret the data. That's why you see these idiots in the Congress and in the CIA and in the Pentagon. We got these brilliant guys in the Pentagon, and it violates the known laws of physics. No, it doesn't. It's just that you're an idiot. You don't understand basic physics. To you, it violates it because you're a fucking monkey. Okay?
It's similar to the hallucination of AI.
Yeah?
It's similar to the hallucination.
So, in any case, pardon my temper, but this is Italy, and I could be my Italian self. I'm part Italian. Okay. So now, this is a serious issue because let's go into the United States has not won a war. Let's face it, guys. America has not won a war since World War II. Any major war with a peer adversary. And we couldn't even beat the Afghanis. We can't even beat the Houthis in Yemen. Carrie's had to leave. Okay. We lost Vietnam. We lost Afghanistan. Ukraine is lost. I don't care what anybody. There's no chance of winning in Ukraine. It was a proxy war, and we're losing in Iran. We already lost in Iran. That's realistically, there's no way we can win. Even if we win, we can't win. So, and also, even World War II, we would not have won without 27 million Russians being killed on the Eastern Front. Okay, so now, and you're going to definitely, America and NATO are definitely going to lose this war. This is the big war. Because if you control gravity with small amounts of electrical power, that's the power of the gods. I'm like Prometheus, bringing that fire of the gods, right? That's time travel. Also, now Louis Elizondo has done some good things. I'm not going to, not everything's done as bad. The two good things that Louis Elizondo has done, he has the two slides, the 5 observables, where they summarize the flight, and those 5 observables, the natural way to explain it, it's warp drive, because somehow they have a technology that's able to lower the stiffness of space-time with small amounts of electrical power, like a Tesla battery, the power of a Tesla battery, something like that. Or maybe this small, Putin showed this small nuclear reactor that powers the missile and the torpedoes. I think that's enough to do it. All right. And now also, Louis Elizondo's other slide is slide 9. Slide 9. That's the psychotronic. And Louis says, and he's right, because this is, you can use the new physics, you can use the kind of physics I'm talking about to control the minds of our political leaders. And that's what I believe is happening. So I believe is happening. Now, let me go back a little history. 1975, you look at the book, How the Hippies Saved Physics, David Kaiser, MIT. I'm sort of a useful idiot in the Central Intelligence Agency, right? They're sending me all kind. I'm an academic. They never. Well, they began to reveal themselves explicitly back then. But so, and this guy George Koopman, he's an agent, and he says, Jack, there are 2 things CIA wants to know: how does consciousness work? Mind control. Louis slide 9. How do flying saucers fly? Okay. That's Louis' other slide. So, Louis, I want to slightly apologize. You've done a good thing for your country. I don't know, by giving those 2, because those 2 slides, what they do, they summarize exactly what George Koopman, the late George Koopman, said. Jack, this is what we want you to work on. We want you to figure out how does consciousness work, Louis slide 9, and how the flying saucers fly, Louis, that slide. I want you to figure that out. And that was 50 years ago. I don't want to sound like George Bush. Mission accomplished. We figured it out, guys. It's not hard. It's easy. If you know, if you've studied with great physicists like Richard Feynman, John Wheeler, Werner Heisenberg, people like that, who are, Hans Bethe, the problem isn't that difficult. Now, let's talk a little about the mind control. It turns out that in quantum mechanics is the wave-particle duality, right? Quantum wave, like classical, there's what's called, in the Copenhagen interpretation, the reality problem. How do we get classical reality when everything's like, smeared out waves, that kind of thing? Now, it turns out the quantum mechanical wave-particle duality is, in fact, the mind-matter duality. The mind map. And in other words, basically, I'm making it oversimplified to some extent. Quantum mechanical wave functions are mental, are mind waves. Think of this as mind waves, and then you have classical matter. The way just solid stuff. All right, and the rigorous way to think about that is the David Bohm, what's called the ontological interpretation. And I won't go into too much detail. But now the point is this. We have this thing called entanglement, spooky action and distance, all the entanglement. And here's part of the problem. If you read the book, How the Hippies Saved Physics, that came out in 2011 by an MIT professor.
Crazy.
It's about the story. I'm in the book. I'm a major character in the book. And about my group, what happened. George Koopman, the CIA, everything's mentioned in that book. But it's a cover-up. It's a cover-up. And this is mind control. Talking about mind control. This is deep state cover-up. David Kaiser's MIT book, Happy state physics is a deep state cover-up of exactly what Eric Weinstein was talking about, Chapel Hill, and the gravity, and Ed Witten's dad, Louis Witten, and a lot of my professors were there. I was a physics student in 1956. I was a freshman, sophomore when they were doing all that. These are the guys teaching me physics. Okay, they did various things, very subtle things. It's called hidden in plain sight. Okay. One of the things they did, and why did they do it? Okay, why did they do it? First of all, we know about magenta, right? We know about the Italian.
Special research.
1933.
33.
1933, like a Roswell. That happened. Mussolini had Marconi, right?
Crony was in charge.
Marconi was a close friend. I have to tell a little history. Marconi was a close friend of my grandfather's distant cousin, but named Margherita Sarfatti. Okay? So she was involved. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So that all happened. Then, when I look at the pattern of history here. See, I'm the only one who can say, because I know things that nobody else knows. I can connect the dots. Okay? Then what happens? The war goes on, right? And the war is over. Mussolini is killed, and we have James Jesus Angleton is in Italy because he had already spoken Italian, so he's in Italy. We have our friend John Mellon Warner's grandpa, Paul Mellon, is there at the same time with General Patton, and we also have Phil Corso. Phil Corso is there, right? They're all in Italy around that time. And I happen to know from John Warner. John Warner, a friend of ours, his not only is his grandfather Paul Mellon, OSS, who was involved in paperclip and getting all the Nazi scientists over to America, okay, and who saw some of the Nazi advanced technology, and so we have that, and plus John's father was the late senator of Virginia was also the secretary of the U.S. Navy. When John and also John's stepmother was Elizabeth Taylor, another little thing. So we have all this kind of stuff going on, and John has confirmed to me that a lot of the stories have a lot of truth to them, including even Admiral Byrd expedition to Antarctica. Okay. So now what happens? They have. Okay. Right. I have to go back a little bit. 1947. We have Roswell, right? Also, 1947. We have Kenneth Arnold. Kenneth Arnold is a Idaho rancher, a pilot flying his plane, and he sees the formation of 7 objects, right? That's what this heard flying saucer, flying disc. Okay, but guess what? Now I can't make this up. Okay, but I am invited up to Bohemian Grove. Like that's the Illuminati. But Bohemian Grove. The guy who invites me to Bohemian Grove. This was pre-COVID. I've been up at the Grove several times, and he is organizing the Bohemian Grove UFO Manhattan Project 2.0, they called it. Why Manhattan Project 2.0? Because Manhattan Project 1.0 was started at the Bohemian Grove. Oppenheimer in 1940 gave a speech to these key guys. The Bohemian Grove, they control the world, right? They're like the Illuminati, whatever. Okay. All the powerful, CIA admirals, they're all there, okay, in camps, okay, in the summertime for a couple of weeks. Any case, the guy who invites me, turns out, he was a little bit younger than me, about my age, guy named Don Rich. He's just passed away recently. Don Rich, by the way, U.S. Marine. Okay, so Don Rich's father in 1947 or 48, whatever it was, is the foreman of Kenneth Arnold's cattle ranch in Idaho. Don is there. I mean, he's a Marine, right? Don is there when Kenneth Arnold, in fact, he's helping his father fix the fence. They're cowboys. They're real cowboys. He was helping fix the fence, and Kenneth Arnold is there. And what happened, Phil?
Right.
Okay. And my friend Don Rich, a little boy, and remembers Kenneth Arnold landing the airplane and telling his father, who is the foreman of the ranch, the story of what he just saw. So it's firsthand witness almost. Okay. Also, it turns out, I won't go into all the details, but after Don Rich gets out, remember, he's the guy, he's one of the most powerful men in Bohemian Grove. He ran the Grove. And by the way, the Grove has their own private police force. They have all kinds of security, and they have their own fire department. It's 3,000 acres. It's like a fortified, oasis. Okay. And so he also says it's in the late 1960s. And Don is out of the Marines, but Don's older brother, is like a colonel still in the Marines. Okay. And Don, at this point, he's a successful artist. That's how he became a member of the Grove. He's like a steel. He makes these big sculptures. And in Oakland, he has a big foundry. It's steel. He's like, okay. So he's doing his number, and it's about 1967, 1968. Black car. And this guy gets out. He said, Colonel Harry Wolf. Who knows? That's probably not his real name, but Colonel Harry Wolf. Semper Fi, we need you to help us. Okay, So for the next 2-3 years, Don Rich is given like a briefcase, with the handcuff, your briefcase, set on different trips. He said, by the way, this is late 60s. He went to Shanghai. One of the places he went to Shanghai, went, of course, MI6, England, with these various things, the French, Australia, New Zealand, this is, with delivering whatever this was. I don't know. He didn't tell me whether he opened. I can know it was locked. I guess he didn't open it. Oh no. He actually saw the kind. When he delivered, he actually saw that. Okay. What do you think was inside that? Okay, so now, toward the end of this, working as a courier for the powers that be, for the intelligence agencies, Harry comes back and hands him a big army, like a khaki sack, whatever, soft thing, and it says Roswell AAF, from the base, and and Harry says, "Don't open it." Yeah, don't open it. Right? Okay. Guess what? He opens it. And if you've read The Day After Roswell about the strut with the Egyptian sort of hieroglyphics on it, it's there. It's all there. Okay, all these pieces from the craft, from everything Phil Corso was talking about. So it's right there, and he has it for 7 days. Now he has a foundry. He's a steel weld. He has acetylene torch. So he's looking at this thing, at the disc especially. It activates. When it activates, so it's weightless. Anti-gravity. He takes an acetylene torch to the thing, and the blue flame, it develops like a little anti-gravity shield. That's the torsion shield. That part is true. Okay, it's all that. Does that. And also, but if he holds it gently and gets in the right frame of mind, it crushes like tissue paper. It crumples like tissue paper. Then it pops right out again. Okay? All right? Has all these strange properties. But it's like the thing is alive. See, it's all. This is very important because it turns out that when George Koopman in 1975 says, Jack, the CIA wants you to think of two problems. How does consciousness work as a physical phenomenon, and how do flying saucers fly? They're actually two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. This is extremely important because this immediately explains both slide 9, the psychotronic warfare stuff, and Louis' 5 observables. They're connected. It's like bread and butter, love and marriage, right? Go together like a horse and carriage, right? Okay. So, why is that? It's called the world hologram theory. World is simulation. Now, as it turns out, in 1963, I'm back at Cornell as a graduate student, and the first guy I meet, this is at the Newman Laboratory of Nuclear Studies, where Beta and all these guys are, is a guy comes in, big bulky guy called Lenny Susskind. Lenny Susskind. At that point, he was he was like a special student because he never graduated CCNY because he got A+ on all his math physics courses, but he flunked all his liberal arts courses. But he was this genius, right? And his father, he worked at his father's plumbing. So when he comes to Cornell, by the way, Ivy League, it's like coming to Trinity College, Cambridge, sort of. Not quite, but almost like, And I thought he was the janitor. He looked like the janitor. Where's the, where's the plunger, the toilet plunger? He's wearing, overalls, and he's strong. He was pretty strong, a big man, sort of mountain man. And it's Lenny Susskind. Okay, and Lenny and I won't go into all details. In any case, I helped him write his first paper. Interestingly enough, this paper on quantum mechanical time and phase operators, okay, that we were working on. So there's the time, okay. And it turns out his first paper is published in the same 1964 journal that Bell published his Bell theorem for entanglement. Okay, same. They published like side by side, which is interesting the way the fates or the gods arrange the story, right? The narrative. Okay, now Lenny also came up with something called the world as a hologram. He calls it where did I put the pen? Oh, okay, this pen, any pen I'll do. I can't. He calls it ER equals EPR. ER equals EPR. Okay, what is ER? ER is basically gravity, general relativity, wormholes, portals, Stargate portals. Okay, general relativity, and EPR are quantum mechanical. Remember, I said to think of the quantum waves as mind waves. So it's like quantum entanglements, the mind. Okay. Now, what is a hologram? A hologram is you have a flat plate, you shine laser light through it, and you get a 3-dimensional image. Lenny's idea is that if you have a region of 3-dimensional space at a fixed time, let's say, 3-dimensional space, you look at the boundary, the 2-dimensional surface closed boundary of that volume, of that interior volume, edge bulk it's called in condensed matter physics, and that basically all the material information inside that volume is encoded by these quantum entanglement patterns on the surface. Okay? And as it turns out, in early 1970s, I was in Europe, and I won't go into all the details, but I helped write a book called Space, Time, and Beyond. It was like a comic book at the time. It sold very well and influenced Hollywood movies, Back from the Future, things like that. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah, because got to know Francis Ford Coppola very well in North Beach and all his friends, okay. And in fact, I introduced Jacques Vallée to Spielberg. That's how Vallée was the technical advisor, Close Encounters. So none of this stuff is coincidental. And at the time, in 1975, I have like a primitive form of Lenny's ER equals EPR. And in the book, I say that I said, okay, my basic picture I have in that book is that you have two particles, and if they're entangled, there's got to be a little wormhole connecting them. Little wormhole connecting them. That's Lenny's basic. I already published that idea in 1975. But without all, Lenny has all kinds of math, and he does a lot more than that. And to give Lenny credit, get a little paranormal stuff here, remote viewing. Lenny and our minds were connected through ordinary communication at Cornell, and actually it was 1962 at Cornell, connected. And we have like a subconscious telepathic contact. And in 1974, so when I'm in Paris, working on all this stuff, I'm having a precognitive remote viewing of Lenny's 2013. I think he did 2013. I'm sort of seeing through, I'm sort of seeing it. And so the idea, I write down, and it's a loop, a time loop. Self-consistent time loops happen. By the way, this is the way all creativity happens. Okay, it's what at SRI, Puthoff Targ, Pat Price, Uri Geller, Edgar Mitchell. It's precognitive remote viewing. So I want to give. I'm not going to say that I created ER because EPR. No, Lenny created it, but I gave a precognition of it back in 1970. I just gave the intuitive thing. Okay, I didn't give the math to it. But one thing I did do, which Lenny didn't do, but which now he's beginning to do, he's Johnny come lately. In that book, there's signaling. In other words, if my mind is entangled, say, with Gavin's mind over there, we can communicate non-random messages without needing any classical signal. Okay, that's called EPR signaling. That corresponds to what's called a traversable wormhole connecting us in some sense that you could pass through. Okay? Here's the big cover up. The book, How the Hippies Say Physics, the message of that book is that me and Nick Herbert and Fred Allen Wolf and Elizabeth Rauscher and everybody, we tried to have EPR signaling, but we failed. Because they don't want people to know what actually is true. Okay, we didn't fail. We actually and also what the book is bad. And I hate to say this because David Kai's a nice guy. He interviewed me. He came, I drove him around my Jaguar, everything. Met Tina, but it's a cover up. He stops as though everything stopped in 1975. Yeah, back then and maybe in the 80s, but he doesn't. The book is way out of date. And it's time for a new book or a new video, going, okay. So actually, and I won't go through all the details now because we want to get to his thing, that it turns out that ordinary quantum mechanics is incomplete. There were the Einstein-Bohr debates on this very topic back in the 1920s. And again, the big cover-up, the deep state cover-up, is that Einstein was wrong and Bohr was right. But that also part of that is that, yes, ER equals EPR, but it's EPR non-signaling, which corresponds to non-traversable wormholes. So if you try to go through the Stargate, you'll get crushed out of existence like a black hole, singularity. It's all bullshit. It's all false, okay? Now, So we have that, and so they're giving the wrong impression. Okay, so now what happened? 30 years ago, I claim, 30 years ago, using David Bohm's stuff, I basically solved one half of the problem. How does consciousness work? You know, how does uh, telepathy, all that stuff, how does that work? Okay, got the basic equations, and it wasn't quite good enough. But then, so this is 1995. I gave a talk at in Tucson, Stuart Hameroff's group in Tucson, and Brian Josephson was there. A lot of people, Walter Friedman was there. A lot of these guys that Father Basti taught, they were all there, and but I didn't have the action prints. I didn't have the proper way of expressing it. Okay, and that's a fair criticism. But in 2015, there's a physicist named Roderick Sutherland who is in Sydney, Australia, and he's a professor there. And he's fortunate enough, he figures out some way to beat the stock market, so he makes a lot of money. And he quits. I mean, he still has an office. He's like a adjunct professor, but he's able to do whatever he wants because he has his own money. And interestingly enough, he formulates the action, the Lagrangian, all that stuff. He formulates exactly what is needed to explain how you get EPR signaling and traversable wormholes. Formulated in 2015. Now, I didn't even know that back in 2011, but so the point is this, that, and just the way it works, we have wave particle duality. In ordinary quantum physics, the quantum wave is like an additional, almost like a force. It changes the classical motion of the particle, okay, in simple terms. But the action-reaction principle between quantum wave and classical matter is violated. And it's because you neglect the direct back reaction of the classical matter on its what's called the pilot wave. The pilot wave. That's why you have what Bohr called uncontrollable randomness. That's why you have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. It's just that the 0-point energy is all like random fluctuations. And that's why you have EPR none signaling. And even in current day, like technology, you have things called quantum teleportation, which is where they can teleport a quantum message, between, say, me and Gavin. Okay, but Gavin cannot decode the message until I send him a classical signal. So it's okay. But with this new thing, you can do it without the classical signal. Now, this is big because this is quantum cryptography. Quantum cryptography is false, basically false. Because it violates the action-reaction principle. Okay. Now we know psychics, we know guys like Ingo Swann, and that we know as a matter because we know that the CIA and I think the KGB, they have successfully used psychic remote viewers to go into the most secret parts of opposing, Kremlin, or they into our Pentagon, whatever, into the White House, into the Oval Office, right? They can do this. I happen to know from one particular CIA station chief who's now dead, who was in charge of that program, who funded me in the 1980s. So we have all this stuff, and there are, people doing it in the military. And you have the Monroe Institute, and what's it, Monagle, all these things. All right. So the question is now, who's going to win this race? This is not only a arms race to control gravity, material, but it's also the control. Now, I maintain, I'm going beyond, I'm just giving you my personal opinion. I hope I'm wrong, I could be wrong. I think that most of the leaders of NATO, and even now my own president, who I support, I think, okay, to use the churches, I think they are demonically possessed. And we're losing because they're demonically possessed. I think there should be a debate about this. We should have the Vatican, the exorcists, all these guys come and talk about all this. At least say, okay, Jack Sarfati is a crazy nut, but well, let's debate the issue. Let's have the scientists, the physicists defending the consensus reality. Let's do it, and let's let the people decide. And I think, because what I think is that what we are saying, we are rushing toward nuclear war. We're very close. It can happen next week. Hopefully, it won't happen. Hopefully, the NHI will prevent it from happening. Okay, that's the best case scenario. So when Louis Elizondo, the first thing in Louis Elizondo's slide 9 that he got from some secret DI Pentagon place talks about controlling the decisions of political leaders. It's not Jack Sarfati, it's Louis Elizondo saying it. And what I'm claiming is this is exactly what CIA asked me in the 19th to work on to show them how to do it. And I'm claiming I've shown them how to do it. But the Russians also know how to do it. In fact, they probably know how to do it better than we know how to do it. Because they see it, they're winning. We're not winning. Okay. So this is something. So here we have. Now, I was told that our friend did brief the president, and we have the president now coming out yesterday with the UFO files, 3 days ago. But I should have been there. I should have been with him talking about all this stuff. And why wasn't I? Okay, so that's all right. Okay, so enough of the politics. Let me get back to the physics. Let me get into what he's doing. Wait, first, are there any questions before I'm going to shift into pure physics now? But any questions? Yeah. You have a question, Gavin? Louder, I can't hear.
Maybe discuss post-quantum and how randomness.
Well, so I can't hear you.
How randomness is incorrect in quantum field theory, but in post-quantum mechanics.
Yeah, can go.
Yeah.
Not random. Yeah, that's EPR signaling. It's controlling the quantum randomness because the back reaction of the classical structures on their pilot waves, that back reaction, it's a feedback control loop. It's a self-organizing feedback control loop. It's sort of like control theory in engineering. That's what happens. That's what we are. We're that's what the human mind is. Yeah. Okay. So, okay.
Question too.
Yeah. Another question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh.
One. What are you doing how do you suggest it to do experimentally to essentially, what predictions have you made with your theories, and what have you suggested?
Oh, I've been talking. Now, wait. Are you talking about the gravity part or the mental part or the paranormal part? The gravity part. Okay, good question. Okay, good. Okay, yeah. That leads me to, okay. Capital G, the first experiment, capital G. Cavendish experiment, done a couple of hundred years ago at Cavendish Laboratory, Cambridge, 1797, trying to measure the strength of the gravitational thing. Now, it turns out, on the one hand, it doesn't seem to be a difficult experiment. They did it, right? They did with big, iron spheres or whatever he did it, okay? And there's all kinds of, it's done in high school, it's done in laboratories, so it's done, but it's all done. But a recent paper came out just recently, a couple of days ago, saying that big G is the least understood empirically, experimentally, constant of the fundamental constants. It's only known to within like 3% or something like that. Accurate. In other words, when they repeat the experiment, there's a pretty big scattering of the data. It fluctuates. They don't really have it. It's not like the fine structure constants. No, 10, 12 places. It sticks out as an anomaly. That's the clue. That is one of the clues how UFOs work. Why is G not being measured accurately? It's because basically the coupling of ordinary matter to gravity, it's not pure gravity. It has the speed of light, but the speed of light, according to Maxwell, c squared is equal to 1 over epsilon 0, mu 0. The speed of light, okay, we have to go back to the 1860s Scotland. Maxwell, at that point, is taking all the empirical engineering data of Michael Faraday, Ampere, all these French guys, Oersted, and all these guys, and he develops a beautiful set of partial differential equations called the Maxwell theory, Maxwell field equations for electromagnetism. And what it is, the first unified field theory. At that point, before Maxwell, you had physicists studying light, you had physicists doing electricity, and you had physicists doing magnetism. Yeah, well, sometimes they were the same guys, but they were set. There was no conceptual unification of them. And with this simple equation that the square of the speed of light is equal to the reciprocal of the product of what's called the electric permittivity multiplied by the magnetic permeability. Okay? And it's in the vacuum. It's in the vacuum. But it should happen in the material too. The same equation applies in the material, and then that is refraction. Refraction and index of refraction, the bending of light in the material. All right.
Same equation applies.
Yeah. So, what?
You said that the same equation applies inside a material and outside of material.
Somebody repeat what he said. Come closer. I can't hear you.
You said that the same equation applies both in a vacuum and in a material.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and that's standard. I mean, that's not a crazy. That's textbook. Okay, so let's go because let's do a little conspiracy theory here. Remember who's the army guy, the Green Beret or Special Forces, who kind of went crazy? So like Amy, all these. He claimed that he found all this secret stuff, and that's why he says electrogravitic, and he took allegedly he took his Tesla truck in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas and blew himself up. Probably not. He was probably I think he was probably murdered, but he kept screaming about electro. He was talking about G over C to the fourth. See, if you can make the effect of C small, then that's one way of trying to control gravity with small amounts of energy. So I suspect, I don't know for a fact. I suspect that he had, but he wasn't a physicist, and who knows but he was killed or who knows what happened, or maybe he was driven to suicide by psychotronic mind control, which is all possible. It's all like Manchurian Candidate, suicide bombers, the whole sort of thing, right? All right, so now, what is it? So look, here's a simple way to explain it, and this is the first experiment, to repeat the Cavendish experiment. And because let me just, if you can, you have Einstein, you have that G, the acceleration of gravity, is minus G over m r squared. That's universal, right? M is what's called the active mass, the source mass, right? That's the simple thing you learn, I'm over, right? However, you also have special relativity of Einstein, right? Einstein, that's the same thing as G over C squared, energy over R squared. It's the C squared that they're hiding. The C squared factor is different in different materials, basically. This is active mass, okay? Different in different materials. By not very much, a couple of percent usually, unless, what do they do in the Cavendish experiment? What do they use? Copper, iron, static, a few materials you use, and you have to talk about what's the static. See, you have to do Fourier analysis. This is these are what are called static near fields. So you have to look at what's called the evanescent field, the near field, where it's almost zero frequency, but all kinds of wavelengths. And the near field and even in classical field theory, near field, you have what's called the far field, that's called en masse shell. If you're a quantum field theorist, it's the poles of the Feynman propagator, the complex energy plane, and you have the rest of the stuff. We're talking about the rest of the stuff, the near field stuff. So the thing is that the different materials, and also the same, you could have a piece of iron from one mine and another piece of iron, a different experiment from another mine, and there's slight differences, maybe a couple of percent, slight differences in the average value of the permittivity, and that's why they're seeing the fluctuation. It's so obvious. Okay, now then they're saying, then people get really stupid. I'm talking about my physicist colleagues who should know better. I say, well, you're violating the equivalence principle. No, we're not. The equivalence, but the Eötvös experiment, the equivalence principle, there are three kinds of masses in classical physics. There is what's called inertial mass, particle, and you apply, say, an electron, you apply an electric field or a magnetic field, and there's a deviation in the motion. That depends on what's called the inertial mass. Then there is what's called the passive gravity mass. That's how if you have an external gravity field, the way the particle responds to an external gravity field is called the passive mass. What the Eötvös experiment proves is the equivalence between the inertial mass and the passive mass. It says nothing whatsoever about the active mass. Is a totally different physical phenomenon. The active mass, I have a chunk of matter, and what is the gravitational field it's creating? It's self-gravitational field. Totally different thing. There's no reason why they should be the same. It's just people assume, it's just this cloud of stupidity. So the point is this. In fact, back in 2011, when Air Force General Pete Warden invites me, pays my way down to Orlando to give the talk, that was my talk. I'm saying the flying saucers, using metamaterials, are able to manipulate the electromagnetic properties. What is a metamaterial? You can do almost anything you want with the permittivity, and there's all kinds of other parameters that come in. You can control the electromagnetic properties of metamaterials. That's what they're doing. That's what all the technology is all about. So I said, it's got to be metamaterials, okay? Yes?
Quick question. This is not like this is something that's provable. It's not hyperbole, right?
Yeah, but yeah. So the point is this. So one of the things I have a person who has the laboratories and the money who can do all this shit, right? In fact, I have to persuade his chief engineer. I'm meeting with his chief engineer. Oh, yeah, by the way. So I'm going back to San Francisco on Friday, the 15th. I'm giving the talk at the Bohm Conference in University of Vermont the end of May. But forget about going to Boston. We'll talk about. And then I have to go back probably to London around the middle of June to meet with the big guys. And so this is preparation, because they are ready. They can do any experiment I want. Okay, and so, but their chief engineer, the guy who's in charge of the labs, I'll be meeting with him. We're going to do the Cavendish. Now, the point is this. They've been looking at my proposal, and say, it's kind of difficult because you really have to worry. And I don't think they really understand what I'm saying. That's why I have to meet with the guys. But they say it's a difficult experiment to do because if you have any because the force of gravity is so weak, if you have any stray electromagnetic fields, you have to eliminate all that stuff. So that's what they're worried about. Okay. But, and I'm not sure if they understand this, you see, I'm not saying that they should try to measure big G. Measuring big G, it's hard to do an accurate experiment, precisely because of the effect I'm talking about. But watch now. I don't think the guys got it yet. Let's see if I can convey it. In my experiment, my version of Cavendish experiment, I don't measure G. I don't give a damn what G is. I'm not measuring G. I'm assuming that G is whatever it is and stays. That G is a invariant. What I'm changing in a controlled, measurable way are the electric permittivity and the magnetic permit of the material. Yeah, I'm testing. I'm changing if the theory is right, the active mass. I'm measuring at fixed G, so I don't care what G. I'm actually measuring the fluctuations directly. Now it turns out, how do you do that? The first thing, so it turns out if you have a lump of ice, if you make a big sphere of ice, okay, and say you put it in a glass container, so it does. Yeah, it starts as ice, and you just watch it slowly melt. Yeah, the ice is the big spheres in the cabbages. Two big glass shells, right? Starting out as ice, and you just let it slowly, and you want to do it slowly because they're transients. You want to do it like adiabatic, and I mean, you have to still. It's not that easy to explain. You have to let the ice melt slowly. It may take a day, whatever it is. You slowly, it's being monitored by the computers and everything, and it becomes water. Guess what happens? When ice melts to water, the static electric permittivity, which is controlling the active mass, changes by 20%. It's a 20% effect. And I'm not measuring G at all. I'm assuming G doesn't change. The G is not changing. I want it to be fixed. But I don't care what it is. I don't care what the number is. Just that it doesn't change.
We mean the little G.
All right?
The little G. We mean.
Yeah. So that's the first experiment. Okay, that's an easy. So that's and actually Grok has calculated how much ice you need, how long it'll take. There's all different ways of doing the experiment. So that's the first thing that will test whether or not it's electrogravitic. Just the guy who got killed in front of the Trump Hotel, blew his Tesla truck. He was yelling, electrogravitic. This is measuring the static electrogravitic effect. Okay.
Jack, can I make a question?
Well,
You have said that the velocity, the speed, the light velocity,
the speed of light.
The speed of light is different in the vacuum or in the material. You have said, okay?
I'm saying I didn't get the thought. What is the thought? What about the
You
vacuum?
have said that the speed of light is different in material or in the vacuum, okay?
Yes.
Well, the experiment, no. You're asking.
You have said before.
He's trying to say is that, are you saying that the speed of light is different in a material compared to a vacuum?
Repeat one. Yeah.
Are you saying that the speed of light is different in a material than in a vacuum?
Of course, that's called refraction. Yeah, of course.
Hold on.
That's just refraction.
Can we consider and treat the vacuum as a material?
Yes. Okay, good question. Yeah, okay, good question. Okay, all right, a little digression. Okay, good question. Because actually, it's extremely relevant to the whole metric engineering problem. Okay, look. Thank you. Yeah, for putting. When Maxwell showed that the speed of light in vacuum was equal to the reciprocal of what's called the vacuum electric permittivity multiplied by the vacuum magnetic permeability. People who do antennas, they talk about vacuum impedance, the ratio of the two. I forget which is which. Okay, the antenna problem. Okay, that was all empirical. In the 1860s, there's no fundamental microscopic explanation. It says you measure it, and that's what it is. Okay. In fact, that was the big thing that Maxwell did because they were able to measure the electric permittivity of the vacuum through electrical experiments. They had a number for the vacuum magnetic permeability, and they also measured the speed of light. The astronomers measuring the speed of light. So Maxwell had 3 separate independently measured numbers for the vacuum case, and it fit that equation. And he was able to explain why, it's okay. I mean, that's the beauty of physics, okay? But it's all like black box. It's all like engineering. I mean, there's no fundamental understanding. And there was not any fundamental understanding until the early 1930s when Dirac in Cambridge, I guess he was at Trinity College also, but anyway, he came with the Dirac equation and antiparticles, you know, from the spinner, the spin 1/2 Dirac equation, which, by the way, he got by just the beauty of the mathematics. You know, one of the cases where pure mathematics gave important physics. Now, Dirac, around that time, the primitive quantum electrodynamics, but very easy to visualize. The vacuum, according to Dirac, he calls it the Dirac Sea, like the ocean, Dirac Sea. What the quantum vacuum is, and we're just now talking about electrodynamics. Forget the other forces there, but they're small corrections. Just electrodynamics. It's a plasma. It's an electron, positron plasma, but what's called virtual particles. See, they're virtual particles. Electron, positron plasma. That the virtual electrons and the virtual positrons are constantly they're popping out of the vacuum, then they're annihilating into you have virtual photons and virtual electrons, virtual positrons. Now, this is pretty interesting, actually. So that means, in fact, now there's some papers. There's a French, I think, French group. There've been a couple of papers taking this model seriously and just putting. They know plasma. They're plasma physicists, right? Use the same equations of plasma physics basically in the vacuum, because you know there isn't that much of a difference mathematically between the mathematical difference between the real particles and the virtual particles in terms of calculation is not that difficult. Okay, there's a precise theory, and so they're able to calculate, given the observed speed of light in vacuum, what is the density, the plasma density of virtual electron positron pairs, right? What is it? They calculate that. So you have a model. It's like a virtual particle plasma physics. Okay, well, that means you have different vacuums. There are you got phase change, but different kinds of vacuums, different kinds of densities. Okay, but there's more. Now there's something that I did that's original. EPR. These virtual electrons and positrons, when they exist, they have spins. Guess what, guys? Now, if you have a pair of spin 1/2 particles, the spins can either be parallel, okay? So that's sort of like spin 1, anti-parallel, spin 0. Now, we get to some interesting. The first approximation, everybody assumes that the spins of the virtual plasma are spin singlets, opposite spins. No net spin. Because if the vacuum had a net spin, you'd have torsion. Quantum mechanical spin creates the torsion field. It's not stress energy. It's a totally different animal. Okay, so people they measure. Okay, the standard group think in mainstream physics is that they know about torsion and they look for torsion in cosmology and they say it's too weak, it's not there. But actually, that's right, it is there. It's the dark energy, the dark matter happens to be taught. But that's the consensus wisdom is that basically all the virtual particles are opposite spin singlets, so there's no net spin anywhere. So it could. All right. So now, yeah.
So basically, if I'm understanding.
Well, I haven't finished though. Let me finish the. Yeah. Okay, but. And this is what people haven't noticed. This is an original thing that I don't think is in anywhere in the public. The weak force, beta decay, parity non-conserving weak force, what's called SU2 force, it violates it violates parity, the left-right mirror. Anyway, the weak force, what it can do, if you put in the weak force as a correction, it's a small correction, but the weak force, it can flip some of the spins, the small fraction of spins, and it's going to flip them from anti-parallel to parallel. So there's going to be a small torsion effect in the vacuum. It's just in cosmology. Grok, the AI to calculate it. And it turns out you can explain. There's the big mystery of why there is something rather than nothing. Because in the Big Bang, if it wasn't for the weak force, really, wasn't a weak force, there should be equal amounts of matter and antimatter, so that the whole universe just be photons, right? So what creates the asymmetry? And according to I'm not an expert. I pose the question, and the AI says, yeah, you can fit it. You can explain exactly what is seen. Okay. Now it also so now let's get back. Does that answer your question? Right? Any other question?
Yeah, I had a question. Basically, so what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that a lot of the anomalies in physics exist because they're not taking all the factors into account, and one of those factors is torsion.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to get to that. Yeah. Okay. So now let's get back to the nitty gritty here. In 1918, Emmy Noether came out with two beautiful mathematical theorems. She was a student of Hermann Weyl, I think in Göttingen, and she came out with these two theorems, what are called Lie group theory. It's mathematical Lie groups. Lie groups are what are called, it's for classical physics now. I want to talk they're continuous groups of transformations of coordinates. So what do we do in physics? In physics, we have detectors. The detectors can be in relative motion to each other. The whole idea in terms of relativity, the whole idea is something's happening out there. Only in vacuum, not inside matter. See, that's another thing. People are very sad. This ideally as a thought experiment, you have to think you're out in space, you're in your space suits, and you have little rocket motors, and you have your little detectors, your radar, all this, whatever you have. And you're floating around in space. And there's relative motion between, say, the two astronauts in space. They're in relative motion, right? But they're watching a UFO. They're watching something flying out there. But they are collecting data with light or radio, whatever, electromagnetic signals in vacuum. They have to be coming in vacuum, coming to their detectors. Let's say over there, let's say Saro's floating and I'm floating. There's some arbitrary, but we're freely floating. We're freely floating, what are called geodesic, we're what are called inertial observers, okay, out in space. And we see him take a cup of coffee, but out in space or whatever he's doing. And you're we have cameras. In fact, the cameras, right? So your camera takes a photo. There's a lot of pixels in it. My camera takes a photo, but of the same thing. But then when we have our computers, we could be communicating by radio after the fact. We're doing data analysis, right? And we ask our computers, you send me your data, I send you my data. And our local computers, we do a correlation. And we'll see that the two patterns are very different. They don't look the same at all. That's because of time dilation and gravity, and all the effects of curvature. Okay, they're different. But then what we do, we use the Einstein relativity program algorithm. You put your data in, I put my data in, output identical complex out. That's called the invariant. That's the operational procedure. That's all that relativity means in terms of engineering. That's the idea of it. And I must say, I think most physicists who are the mathematical types, they won't even know what the hell I'm talking about. All they do is do the math. You can do the math without understanding what it means. Most theoretical physicists today are mathematicians pretending to be physicists. They don't really understand what they do. They can come up with correct answers given the theory, but how to translate that into an experiment they tell an engineer how to do is a separate story.
Ask nature.
Yeah.
Ask nature.
Yeah. Okay, so now what Emmy Noether did was to do the mathematics of the frame transformation between the different detectors that give you the same output of data. That's the Lie group theory, okay? There are two theorems. The first theorem is called the global theorem, and the second theorem is called the local theorem. So now, here's the point. Einstein, 1915, has his field equation, which he struggled, sort of, not really understanding why it should be that, but he got it. That's 1915. 3 years later, Emmy Noether comes out with her theorems. Now, Einstein then knew about the theorems. He knew about the theorems, but he never connected the theorems to his equation, to his theory, as far as we know. I asked Squawk to check this, and apparently not. Apparently not. So Einstein, he was close, but he didn't think of the right, he wasn't a mathematician, really. It's not an obvious thing to do. So he died in 1955, like Moses. He wasn't, I'm Joshua, okay? He didn't know. No, but actually, okay. So now, 2 years later, a Japanese physicist from Tokyo named Utiyama comes to Princeton Institute for Advanced Study. And he knows, he gets the idea, he says, hey, what happens to Noether's theorem should explain everything. All of modern physics should come from, because all Lie groups, group theory, people, they know. So now, Utiyama says, well, listen, what is the basic symmetry group of Einstein's special theory of relativity? Lorentz, it's what's called the Lorentz group. It's a Lie group. It's what's called a non-compact continuous Lie group. It has what's called an algebra, a generating algebra. And now, what is this algebra? Let me physically explain what the Lorentz group is. What the Lorentz group is, it has an algebra in it with 6 objects. 3 of the objects are rotations. I have, in 3-dimensional space, I can rotate the apparatus around the z-axis. I can rotate it the perpendicular x-axis and the perpendicular y-axis. Those are, they look like matrices. In general, they're like matrices. So those are called the rotation matrices. Okay, and they have to do with orbital angular momentum, and actually spin too. But classically, rotational angular momentum, angular momentum generators. Okay, we have 3 more. 3 more, and this is where what special relativity is. You imagine a time axis and the x-axis, or a time axis and the y-axis, or a time axis. Yeah, you just generalize your rotational idea, but to the 4-dimensional space-time of Minkowski. But time is like an imaginary coordinate, but so you want to call space-time rotation. Now, what that is, if I'm saying the tx plane, time x plane, right? And what a rotation is there. Sorrow is moving along the x-axis. You're moving along on a train. He's on a railway track, moving constant speed, and I'm standing at the station. Okay, but we're both looking at one over there, doing some waving. We're both looking at waving. Okay, you take your photograph, I take my photograph, right? But we're in relative motion, and we do the same procedure. The photographs look a little bit different, but they're not the same. We put it through the special relativity program. Out comes the same number, the invariant. That's objective reality, okay? And that's what that rotation means. It goes from one frame of reference to another frame of reference. So those are okay. So, and it turns out that how should I say this? If the relative velocity between, say, Sarah and I stays the same, but we move at different points in the universe. That's called a rigid global transformation. Okay, it's the same it's the same relative velocity between the detectors, let's say, or another way of saying it's the same angle of rotation in space-time, the same angle of rotation, but everywhere the same in the universe. Okay, that's called global. That's global gauge invariance. Okay, and what happens there? Our first theorem, it connects symmetries with conservation laws. What will happen there in the case like that, and if it's for all six things, if it's the same spatial rotation angle, the same velocity rotation angle everywhere in the universe, what happens is that the total angular momentum of the universe and the total, what's called boost, there's a thing, it's like a charge. The total generator of these Lorentz transformations, they are fixed in time. They're constants of the motion. That's like a first thing. Okay? That's the first theorem of Eminata in engineering terms. The second theorem is what happens if we do our experiment here at a given v at a given relative velocity, then we move over there and we change the relative velocity. We make it arbitrary. Yeah, and we're measuring what's called a certain, say we're measuring the photon field, we're measuring electromagnetic fields out in space. That will tell you, well, actually, what that gives you, we have, in that case, okay, wait, we don't even have electromagnetism yet. Eminat's first theorem is that we know about electric charge. We know about electric charge, but we have no idea about the magnetic and electric fields. Okay, we have no idea. Okay, if we do the rigid thing, well, see the electric charge. We measure the electric. We have to measure the electric charge of the entire universe, which is but this is theoretical. Like that, the electric charge is not going to change. But when we allow what's called this phase parameter to be, we allow something. It's like it's not a velocity in this case. So it's called an internal symmetry group. There's something called the phase. Okay, phase angle. We allow it takes instead of a physical velocity in space, it's like this abstract space, and we allow this phase angle to be arbitrary. Then, in order to keep the equations, in order to keep the equations of electric charge, we have equations for electric charge. We have equations for that, but we have no idea that the charge creates an electromagnetic field. Okay. We do the second theorem, and out pops, in order to keep the equations, our previous equations, looking the same, what's called an invariance, so I keep or covariance, in order to keep those equations looking the same, we have to introduce what's called a compensating gauge field. That compensating field is what's called the electromagnetic vector potential. And from that, just from the mathematics, if you do it right, and this was already known by the time Uchiyama gets to Princeton in 1957, people had figured that out. You could derive Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations by applying the second theorem of 1918 to a sort of a truncated toy model, which there's electric charges without any electromagnetic field. So, in fact, Feynman did it. Showed how to do this. Okay, so you could deduce electromagnetism. Okay, suppose you only knew, let me be more precise. You only know the Dirac equation for the electron spin. You only know that Dirac equation. But you don't know anything about electromagnetism. You're an alien from somewhere, okay. But you apply the second theorem, out pops, in order to keep the theory consistent, out pops Maxwell's equations. Okay? So this is already known. This is extremely important you understand this, actually, if you really want to understand the flying saucers. In the 1950s, Yang and Mills, they were beginning to do the same trick that Feynman did for electromagnetism, I was just telling you, they were applying MENO, the second theorem, to the weak force, beta radioactivity, and to the strong nuclear, subnuclear force. Okay, SU2, SU3. The electromagnetic theory is called the U1 Lie group. It's a abelian. It's a simple group. It has one generator. Electromagnetism has one generator. Electromagnetic field, one electric charge, one generator. Okay, and it's what's called an internal symmetry group. The transformations are not in space-time. They're in what's called this internal space, like extra-dimensional space. Okay. Then the weak force, beta radioactivity, that has three generators, like three charges. They're the W bosons. Okay, three charges, and the nuclear force has eight. SU3 has eight charges, so those are the gluons. You know, that connect the quarks. You have the quarks and the gluons. Okay, so they were beginning in the 50s. They didn't quite have it. Yang and Mills, they didn't really have this picture, but there was beginning. But Uchiyama, he had the idea. Hey, why don't I do the same trick that these guys are doing for compact internal circuit? Let me do it for the Lorentz space-time group. What happens? Brilliant idea. Maybe he was a contactee. Because Einstein didn't think of it. Nobody else thought of it. But it was natural, you know, okay. Why stick to internal symmetry? Why not do the whole thing? The same thing. It's general, right? So he does it. Out comes Einstein's 1915 field equation. There it is. So from the bottom, this is 1957. Same time that Eric Weinstein talks about the Chapel Hill Conference, you know, all right? Out comes Uchiyama's thing. It remained a backwater. Nobody made the connection. It was kind of, I mean, people knew about it. You know, small amount of physicists knew about it, but nobody sort of thought what it means. It's there. It's an interest, like it's an anomaly, but interesting little fact. Okay, what happens then? A couple of years go by. See, I got to make it personal because it is, you know, it's like the hero's journey, right? A couple of years go by, and I'm a graduate student at UCSD in La Jolla, and it's the summer of 1966, and you know, it's like during the summer, and I'm invited to a NATO summer school in Munich at the Max Planck Institute in Munich with Werner Heisenberg. And John Wheeler's there. So I spent 4 weeks every day living in Schwabing and like the North Beach of Munich, getting on the trolley car, going to the end of the line. There's getting off at the end of the line. There's the Max Planck Institute. 9 to 5, 5 days a week, spending the whole day listening to Heisenberg and John Wheeler, and there were a bunch of other people there. You know, there's a small group of students. All right, listening. Okay, and but then after that, I was also sent to Her Majesty's Atomic Energy Research Establishment at Harwell in England. Okay, and there's a whole reason why that happened. I won't go into all the details. It's all intelligence agencies, right? And because UCSD, first of all, San Diego, especially back in the 60s, Navy town, military town, all the professors at UCSD, they were also connected with the Manhattan Project. Keith Buckner, I was with Keith Buckner. You ever heard the Jasons? The Jasons were the Pentagon group. I actually went to Jason seminars, you know, about Vietnam and the electric fence. It was all part of military. General Atomics is across the road. General Atomics, okay? So part, you know, and I was working for Keith Buckner and so on. So I arrived with my first wife at the time, arrived at Her Majesty's Atomic Energy Research Establishment, Harwell, in July of '66, and I'm living at Ridgeway House on the campus, like a campus, at the former RAF Battle of Britain. You know, that's where all the air bases, the Spitfires, all around there. You know, and a lot of the guys who are the pilots and the intelligence, they're still living there. They're working at Harwell. They moved in Harwell. So so all these British intelligence guys, right? All right. So and then so the guys who invited me, Ron Bullough, he was the head of it, and they knew Beta. They were all connected with La Jolla and stuff like that. So in any case, so they would they said 1 day a week, Jack, go down to London, get on the train, go down to London, and go to Imperial College. The Imperial, which is like the MIT of London. Go to Imperial College, and there at Imperial College, I meet Abdus Salam, who's the head of Imperial. He's a Pakistani, but he's the chairman of the theoretical physics department. He later got a Nobel Prize. It's before the Nobel Prize. Yeah, and for lecture week and all that. Okay, and I meet a guy, Tom Kibble. I'm pretty sure I met Goldstone and Higgs. They're all there working. Okay. Yeah, I'm talking, and I was like, I didn't really understand it the way I understand it now. I was understand some of it, but So what is Kibble working on? Kibble's working on the Utiyama's problem. Kibble is saying, well, listen, why did Utiyama stop at the Lorentz group? There's something called the Poincaré group. The Poincaré group, which it's a 10 parameter group. And what it has that the Lorentz group doesn't have, it has translation. In other words, I displace a certain distance along X, I displace a certain distance along Y, I displace a certain distance along Z, the translational, and also I move in time, translation in time. What is the Lie algebra?
Could I
Yeah,
introduce?
yeah. Well, let me just continue. I want to stay on this thing. Yeah, you could just keep quiet. Yeah, because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So what do these things mean? The generators are the total energy. For time translation, it's total energy. For space, it's linear momentum. Force is the rate of change linear momentum, right? Linear momentum. It's the total energy and the total linear momentum of a closed system, provided that there's translational symmetry in the sense of Emmy-Noether's first theorem. Okay? And he left that out. I mean, so Kibble says, well, I'm going to put this into Emmy-Noether's second theorem. What happens? Guess what happens? Torsion. Torsion pops out. It's the torsion field. It's an additional term. Where's the yeah. By the way, where's my phone? Do I have my phone? I just don't want to lose track of phones. Do you have it? Where? Where do I have it? Is this it? No, is this my phone? Oh yeah, it's my phone. Okay. There's an additional term. Okay, let me where's the eraser? Did anybody see what do I do with the eraser? Anybody see the eraser for the board? Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. Okay, got it. Okay, look. So, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Okay, so let's summarize. Where are we at now? We have 1950. We have Einstein. I'm just going to write Einstein's field equation as G mu nu. I'm going to call it K1 coupling times T mu nu. Okay, coupling and T mu. That's Einstein. But Utiyama shows that is the local gauge theory of what's called SO13. That's the Lorentz group with 6 generators. Local gauge, the rigid Lorentz group of special relativity, you get Einstein's 1915 field equation. Early 1960s, at Imperial, Kibble, who notices what Utiyama's done, says, well, why did we stop there? Let's do the whole Poincaré group, which is part of special relativity. He gets an additional torsion field, which changes the field equation. Change it. You now have, I'm going to call it plus, I'm going to call it K2 squared. I'm going to call it S squared G mu nu. I'm sorry, okay. It's a square. And this comes from this is times what's called the T4 is the translation group. So it's in other words, SO13, the Lorentz group is a subgroup of the Poincare group, right? The translation group is a subgroup of the Poincare group. You multiply, it's called a semi-direct. I won't do all the math, but I'm oversimplifying. You multiply the two things together, you get the Poincare group. You do the second theorem trick, out pops an additional term in Einstein's field equation. Okay? The torsion field. But guess what, guys? The torsion field depends on the metric tensor. The effect of locally gauging the Poincare group is to immediately explain because lambda, the cosmological constant, is simply K2 squared S squared, because the whole idea what Einstein had put in just by dimensional analysis, Einstein put in what's called his cosmological constant term by hand, and then he got rid of it. There's this whole thing. Now, it turns out this explains dark energy, also explains dark matter. It explains dark energy, dark matter are easy, and people just stupid, because they're just fucking stupid. I'm sorry. Pardon my friend. My okay. Yeah. Wait, no, I want to finish. I don't want to get interrupted. So this is the okay. This, when lambda is positive, this is a dynamical field. It can be positive and negative, dynamical field. It's not just, not. When it's positive, that's anti-gravity. This is standard, that's the acceleration of the expanding universe, the cosmic anti-gravity field. The dark energy is just when this thing is positive. When it's anti-gravity, it's naturally going to dominate the big scales because things are blowing apart, right? The big scale. So large scales, the thing is going to be positive, but when it's negative, it's dark matter. It's attractive gravity. These are vacuum effects. Okay, well, it's like torsion in the vacuum. Okay, torsion in the vacuum, but remember, I showed that the weak force, because it flips the spin of the Dirac sea, will create a small, torsion effect. So dark energy, dark matter, piece of cake, man, piece of cake. There it is. You want to, let's debate. Where's the big shots? Where's Ed Witt and all these guys? Come, let's talk about this. Nobody's interested, right? Yeah.
So essentially, you could take a lot of the cosmological, the lambda.
Yeah, it's
just torsion.
That's all it is.
If you control K, you control lambda.
What?
Yes.
Okay, but
If you control K, you
okay, wait, yeah, I got that. Let me, don't jump. You're jumping ahead too fast. That's all. Yeah, we got that. All right. So now the thing is this. So right away, torsion is explained, but there's another thing. In general relativity, what these guys do, schmucks. Sorry, guys, schmucks. They arbitrarily set the torsion field equal to 0. They say equal to 0. Why? Because otherwise it violates general relativity. So stupid. I mean,
Einstein's big mistake, right?
yeah, it's like staying in the little box, covering a little box. I don't want to think about it outside the box. I mean, that's one of the reasons I actually quit academia. I was an assistant professor of physics at San Diego State when I was 26, 27 years old. And these people were also boring. I mean, all of them kind of autistic and, they were, I just had to get, felt suffocated. Okay. Fortunately, the CIA came along and let me be crazy Jack, right? All right. So, all right. So that's explained. Now there's another thing. Now we want to get to the controlling lambda, okay? Or when you look at the papers, what they do, and one reason they ignored the torsion, and so there are now people, by the way, there's plenty of papers now saying dark energy, dark matter are vacuum torsion fields. I'm not the only one saying it, because it's obvious, because it's the same mathematics, okay? Mathematics comes out from every another. So the thing is this, but what they do, they're basically saying that I'm oversimplifying a little. that K1 and K2 are the same. It's Newton's G over C to the 4. So it's a small number, 10 to the minus 43. But the torsion is the square of that small number. So here it's really small. So that's why I take the torsion equals 0. Okay. Turns out that's false. Now we get to Texas space. Now we get to the Texas space. Turns out that's false. And this is now what, I don't know if Russians, well, maybe the Russians understand it if they've been really tracking me. They did invite me to Moscow. So maybe they can, oh wait, boy, no, when they invited me to Moscow in 23, I didn't have this. This is phase 2. This only happened recently, in the last year. This only happened last year because of Elon Musk's AI. You're working with Grok. Good.
At that point, may I suggest something? This has been brilliant. And now you have in front of you 3, by my count, what I call AI autodidacts, graduate students. I don't know if you consider that they haven't enrolled yet.
Yeah, all right, but let's not talk about AI right now.
No, I'm just saying that's
some
of their
yeah, these 3 guys. Yeah,
so this is Elijah,
yeah,
who just came all the way from North Carolina,
oh,
and who is a friend and a colleague.
All right, but let's.
So the question is, what I've done is I've delayed lunch.
We have lunch
From 1 to 1:45, which is just a couple of blocks from here. So we have an hour left, and I want to make sure that before we go to lunch, there's some dialogue on their topics, which is an extension.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't understand their topics.
But towards time.
Yeah.
And the possibility.
Oh, we're not meeting in the afternoon?
We weren't planning to. We could come back.
I think we should come back because I haven't really gotten to the important stuff yet.
But
UAPs. Yeah, but I don't care what they have to say. No. But they got to understand something. They may be. But wait. Let me make a point. I'm not saying what they're saying is not important or is wrong, but it's not as important as what I have to say. Because this is but there's I can't even understand his Italian. I mean, there's not going to be any dialogue, any real dialogue until that would take. We can't rush that in the next 10 minutes. Nothing's going to happen, even if he has something important, which he might have. I'm not saying he doesn't have anything. What I'm saying is that this is gold. This is gold because this is standard, the highest pedigree in the tradition of theoretical physics from a PhD physicist, not an autodidact who never took a physics course. I don't care what they say, even though they may turn out to be right, because they may be contactees that have the information. But we're not going to get it in the next 5 minutes. Okay, so what I suggest we break for lunch.
Oh, no, let's just delay for
What?
another. We don't have to leave for another hour. We have 1 more hour here.
Oh, okay, but I don't want to hear them talk. I really don't want to hear them talk. Well, later, if I finish my story, then because I haven't gotten to the important. I haven't gotten to the why I'm being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to work on this stuff by very important people in England, including the top level of the British military establishment, connected to the royal family, okay? Why they're doing this. This is serious stuff, okay? It's not just academic stuff. Right? This is weapons. This is why it's called Manhattan Project 2.0. Really is Manhattan Project 2.0. Okay, so the point is this. This coupling constant turns out to be very strong. This is what is not known. The torsion coupling of quantum mechanical spins generating torsion, it's the same strength as the electromagnetic coupling. It's 43 powers of 10 stronger. This is what I'm saying. It could be wrong, but this is, and I'm saying that's why we see these things able to fly around with hardly disturbing the atmosphere, because the electro, torsion coupling is much bigger. Now, I have the details. I won't go into because that's going to take at least 20, 30 minutes to explain why that is. But that's what's missing from everybody else. Now, I don't know if the Russians know it or the Chinese know. Maybe they do because they've been reading my stuff. I've been fairly public about it. All right, so that is, okay. And the last thing, because I will make it short, the last thing is that the story doesn't end there. There's there's what's called the conformal group. The has an additional 5 generators. The conformal group is from Roger Penrose, who got the Nobel Prize recently. Roger Penrose. He got who worked with Hawking on the black holes and all that, the singularity theorems. And I happened to be in London again in 1971, working with David Bohm. Roger Penrose, a young professor there, and he's developing his ideas of the conformal group. And he was giving a seminar, and it was just Roger, me, and about 3 or 4 other guys. I was postdocs, whatever, listening to Roger. I was listening to, I didn't quite understand everything he was saying, but it's in my subconscious. So, but Roger Penrose never, although he knew Emmy-Noether's theorem, he also, like Einstein, he never applied Emmy-Noether's theorems to his conformal group. Okay? And I only thought to do that a couple of months ago. We're working with Grok. And that gives you an additional, in other words, instead of, to summarize now, because we'll stop now. Einstein's 1915 theory gives you basically 6 of these gauge fields, space-time gravity gauge fields, gives you 6. Kibble gives another 4, so there's 10. But now they're 15, and which are going to be relevant, okay? So we're at the point now of exploring what are these additional fields, how are they fitting into the UFO problem? Okay, so I think I can stop here.
Can I ask one dumb question?
Yeah.
Not a dumb question.
Yeah.
What are the units for lambda?
What?
Units for lambda.
It's curvature, 1 over the area. Exactly the same. Yeah. It's part of the curvature. Because G mu nu is dimensionless. The metric sense, the little G mu nu is pure number. Yeah. Yeah.
Or just to check that I understood everything correctly. So basically what you're saying overall is that what they say is impossible in physics, it's not that it's impossible, it's just that they're using the wrong math.
Yeah, they're using the wrong math. Everything they're doing is wrong.
Consideration a big factor, a big force, which is torsion. And when you take it into account, everything changes. What you think is possible and what you based on when you do the math and you check it again, right?
I can't understand that. Everybody understand?
When you add the torsion factor, it changes what the math says is possible.
What did he say?
He's making a statement. You're going to have to repeat it.
Yeah, we can't. The sound.
You're saying when you add torsion, it changes what it changes what the math says is possible.
Yes.
And it also makes more sense.
Yes, of course. What I'm claiming. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I understand what he said. What I'm claiming is when you add the full theory, when you put in all the terms, things that seem like mysterious, they don't understand. Everything's explained. There's nothing that cannot be explained. Yeah, I could be wrong. I hope somebody proves me wrong. But as far as I can tell at the moment, there are no more mysteries. So the dark energy, the dark matter, all the big problems are solved, including the UFOs, how they fly. And you can apply it. I mean, it's standard physics now. It's anybody can do it.
Are we allowed to?
And all right. So now, so the point is this. Okay. Now, from what I understand of what Rossetti's doing, he has an antenna. Tell me if I'm wrong. An antenna that he says will generate a portal, a stargate, like Man in the High Castle, right? He has this generator that'll do it, and it's a torsion effect. I don't know, maybe. Now, but it turns out, but he also has this very complex set of coordinates, the spiral logarithm, whatever it is, and looks impressive. I'm not saying it's wrong, but he has to explain how'd you think of that? Are you did it just appear in your mind? Can you translate it into Italian?
He's got the translator.
Oh, you got it. In other words, how did he get I said, how? Where did this come from? How did he get there? Did he suddenly wake up in a dream and there it was?
Ask him. He's right there.
No. How did you come to those coordinates?
No,
It's complicated. How did they think of it?
la torsione, come ho spiegato prima,
I don't know.
vabbè,
Is it working?
la torsione, come ho spiegato
Still
prima,
downloading.
fa parte.
I don't know.
Oh, hold
It's not
on
working.
1 second.
Yeah, it's not working.
No, it will.
Well, then let's just look at somebody else.
No. No, you have to fix his.
Yeah,
Connect
Yeah.
to mine.
Oh, it is.
yeah, but also fix mine.
No, his is connected to mine.
Oh.
It's Jack's that's.
Yeah,
You-
I can't
Jack,
understand.
you
Yeah,
have
I'm
to
not
fix
getting.
Jack.
I don't understand what he's saying.
Okay, so his AirPods are being.
It's still downloading.
No, to his phone.
He's connected to his
Yeah.
phone now?
Yeah, he just needs to turn it back on.
Just hold down each AirPod.
Brother, nice to meet you.
Hold on, touch your AirPods, touch them, hold them in each.
Yeah, turn them on. Yeah.
Just hold them each down.
This was.
Sorry. Avrei bisogno di 2 minuti solo di.
Okay. Cabinetto.
Sì.
It's to the left.
Grazie, thank you.
Oh, good. Let him go to the bathroom.
Sometimes if you merely put them back into the box.
Yeah,
and
put him
take
back in here real quick.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
we'll put them back in, just for a second.
Yeah.
Right, both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we'll close it and then.
Then let me
And then-
connect because the AirPods aren't connected to this. We're good.
They are connected to his phone.
They're not. They're not here.
But do we translate?
Mm-hmm.
Do you speak it?
Lessons, it's
That's about it.
I understand his word. Okay, put them in your ears.
Okay.
Now they're connected.
Can you understand when we're talking?
Okay, I heard. Yeah, okay.
Continue.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
So did you get all that?
Yes, absolutely.
Now they're working. So when he comes back, he should be able to.
Can you get his mic?
Yeah.
Right, please.
You also take it off. You can better.
Thank you, sir.
Can you do the Wi-Fi first?
Yes, it's Hilton. It's here. No, you're good. You got a code and it's Hilton lowercase.
We'll be right back. Mohammed, have you had a chance to look at both Rodolfo's work and also Elijah's?
Well, I looked at Rodolfo's work about a month ago. Nothing really has changed from the early conclusions I had regarding that. But I get to look at Elijah's, and I had my AI system make a thorough review that I can read out for you guys on the conclusions. But it's really, really interesting what he did for sure. Regarding Rodolfo's theory.
I think that Elijah's, excuse me, I don't think that Jack has had a chance. He doesn't even know what Elijah's work is.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do is I think but if Elijah could explain it, that'd be great.
They're connected to each other.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
You want to turn your phone?
Well, you really know this stuff, the technology. Do you do this at work?
No, I have somebody doing this for me at work.
Okay.
Here, thank you. Excellent. Let me get you another one.
So,
Yeah.
one moment.
I have this one. Oh, you have it? Okay, good. That's why your phone doesn't.
Dovrebbe andare.
Okay, here.
Ok, va bene.
Perfect. Jack, put your phone closer to him so he can hear.
What?
Place your phone closer to him so he can hear him.
Is that close enough?
Yeah.
Sento benissimo. Ok.
Excellent.
Molto bene.
Allora, qual era la domanda, scusate?
The question is, how does he get his coordinates, a complicated set of coordinates? Where'd it come from? I mean, how do you even think to even, right? It's very complicated what he's got there. A very elaborate set of equations, which I can't tell if it's right or what it is. But there's no motivation for it. Where does it come from?
Just talk to him directly. It's translated for him.
A lot of people are getting downloads from NHI, like even Gary Nolan, who's a full professor at Stanford Medical School and is an accomplished guy. He claims he's in contact with something. A lot of people are getting these downloads. So it's been the case of that. And also, how does Muhammad says he didn't know anything a year ago, and suddenly he knows all this stuff? That's not possible without some kind of paranormal event happening.
They're your graduate students. Maybe
What?
that's what they're downloading from you.
No, not from me. No,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I mean, Muhammad knows all this AI stuff. I don't know any of that stuff. But
I believe it's intuition.
how did you learn it so quickly to be able to now perform and Musk and the billions of dollars worth of stuff? So the only way that can happen is no download. Intervention. Right, go ahead.
Non può essere, è una giusta, ottima osservazione, dottor Sarfatti. Non può essere naturalmente tutto il lavoro del frutto dell'intelligenza artificiale, perché è chiaro che qui c'è l'intuizione umana. Io ho notato questa comparsa di questa spirale logaritmica proprio osservando la galassia di Andromeda. Le stelle della galassia di Andromeda si muovono perfettamente costanti, a velocità costante, come se fossero legate a dei bracci di una gigantesca spirale logaritmica, appunto, e quindi mi ha fatto intuire che ci fosse un potente campo torsionale, un campo che compare un po' dappertutto, dalla galassia di Andromeda ai girasoli, al nostro DNA. Quindi è stato già nel 2006 che ho avuto questa intuizione. È chiaro che poi naturalmente mi sono fatto aiutare dall'intelligenza artificiale per quanto riguarda la formulazione delle equazioni matematiche, però ovviamente bisogna avere anche l'intuito per comprendere dove sta andando per il verso giusto, veicolare quindi l'intelligenza artificiale dove potrebbe sbagliare. Queste equazioni, questa mia teoria che io ho portato qui con me, non sono equazioni ovviamente cantate in aria, sono il frutto di un densissimo calcoli tensoriali, simbolici, fatti con Exact. Exact è un plugin di matematica dell'azienda Wolfram, e quindi c'è non solo la validazione analitica, ma c'è anche la validazione numerica, quindi a livello macchina fatta con Python, e quindi con tanto di grafici, perché ovviamente se la teoria non fosse corretta, quando io calcolo per esempio lo scudo torsionale, che è infinito, con l'algoritmo matematico Rujkutta, che è un algoritmo estremamente avanzato, serve per calcolare la traiettoria, l'orbita dei satelliti, dei pianeti, È chiaro che Python non mi può mai produrre dei grafici come questi, che sono veramente devastanti. Poi vi spiego cosa significa questo grafico, ma mi sputerai in faccia una scritta rossa, errore. Quindi c'è, e questo algoritmo ha una precisione nel calcolare la traiettoria della particella all'interno del mio wormhole, la spirale logaritmica, di 10 elevato
Okay, well, let me
alla
stop.
13.
Stop. This doesn't fly.
Go ahead.
No, it doesn't fly. But no physicist, like the guys funding me, they hear this stuff, they're gonna walk out of here. It's not physics. He's just doing it. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's not gonna. He's not speaking the language, the professional language that I'm talking about. What he has to do is to show how this is the equation. He has to show how for that equation, his solution somehow fits that equation. Otherwise, I have no idea what that Andromeda Nebula. It's like astrology. It's not even wrong in terms of power. I have no idea what that means. It's babbling. But the point is what I'm saying, and I'm pretty open-minded. Any physicist hearing this, any PhD, a professor especially, they're gonna yell. The Pentagon would yell. They don't know what the hell he's talking about. It's it's not. It's just simply not good enough. It doesn't communicate. I have no idea what the hell he's trying to say.
I'm not saying it's wrong. You're not saying that what he's saying is incorrect, but rather you're saying that the way he's translating it would not. You would need to actually translate his intuition into their vocabulary. So if he's talking to physicists, he would have to be able to speak native physics. Now that's where the AI comes in, right? Because the AI can help you change what you're saying into the native language you're speaking to, right?
Yeah, I'm also saying, as advice to you, as presentation, don't talk about you saw the Andromeda Nebula and the spot. Nobody's gonna. I mean, as soon as that's a big turnoff to a physicist. What the hell is this guy? Where'd you get him?
No, but speak directly to Rodolfo.
Yeah,
what you're saying is interesting, and he's on the point.
You have to speak the language. It's like going to Carnegie Hall and you're gonna play a Chopin piece and you never took a piano. Nobody's gonna pay any attention to it. Now, if he says it came in a dream, and see, he does have equations, which they look. He does start talking about the math. He should only talk about the math. He shouldn't talk about what motivated him to do.
Wait! You ask him what motivated him, Rodolfo. You shouldn't have answered about the Andromeda observation.
No, okay. It just came in a dream. I'm a contactee in the that I would actually take more seriously than what he's saying, because I don't see any connection to what I'm talking about. Well, when he says torsion, I never say he's wrong. When he says torsion, it's not what I mean by torsion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different.
What it is, and sorry to interrupt you. What it is that Jack has had a lifetime where he's had to defend his theory, and he's giving advice not out of hostility, but rather he knows what you're gonna face whenever you say something. Whenever you're introducing a theory that doesn't fit the norm, and he's just giving you advice on how to present it so that you're not laughed out of the room, so that you're actually taken seriously from his own experience, because he's had to deal with that his whole life.
Rodolfo, did you understand what Mohammed just said?
No, do you understand?
Yeah, I did, but
tell me what he said.
He said that he was characterizing your comments, and he said, Rodolfo, don't take it as like a critique. He's trying to give you good advice. Because you've experienced being laughed at.
Right.
And but he's saying that you really have to stick to the physics. And with respect to intuition, please, who knows where intuition comes from, downloads or whatever. But in any case, once the AI gets involved, it should be able to turn it into language that is communicatable to physicists.
Yeah. And the point is, look, his stuff is so complicated, it will take a lot of work to explain where. And also, he has a metric Do you have that? Do you have that term? Does he have that term? Unless he can connect what he's saying to that equation, I won't believe it. Nobody else will believe it either.
Speak to Rodolfo as a you, not to me or to a third party. All right.
He has to show. I mean, he has to show that we're talking on the same page. And right now, we're not talking on the same page. He has to start with show this equation and how his solution is a solution to that equation. He has to connect them, and then I can understand what he's trying to say.
And basically connect it to something that the person understands so that they're able to speak on the subject quicker. Because if you have to if you have to teach a person a whole new type of science just to even have a communication about whatever you're talking about, it makes it too difficult. So you have to meet them where they're at and translate it into what they do. And so for Jack, that's his gauge group and that's his theory. How does that translate to this? How does that fit with this? And then that would help him understand because he's been working on that his whole life. Yeah. Is basically saying, I understand. Yeah.
And Rodolfo, did you understand Mohammed's advice?
Sì, la metrica io ce l'ho scritta qui, ovviamente non essendo un fisico, ma sta scritta qui. I concetti della metrica stanno scritti qua.
He's showing that equation. I don't understand. I may be right. I'm not saying it's wrong.
But saying
It has to be motivated.
to Rodolfo himself.
Okay, it has to be right. You have to show how does that equation fit that?
Sì.
I don't see how to connect those dots. It looks interesting. There may be something I would say.
Rodolfo, did you understand?
Yeah.
How does that equation fit?
How does this how does this G mu nu come from here? What's the connection between the two?
Elijah has an answer for that.
All right, so this is for my notes, but all right, so your lambda equation, right? It's coupling between the EM pump and the dynamic response, right? So
I can't understand.
Okay, so now we get clarity.
I got you.
You speak English, right?
I speak English. Yeah.
It's totally
All right. So just on top. So to start fresh, what I created off of his framework, off of his torsion field, the wormhole, mathematics that he added together to physics. What I put together was just because you mentioned Elon Musk, you mentioned Elon Musk, you mentioned big guys. What we created was a way to turn LLMs into a database. A database. So model weight. So I actually took classes from 2016 up to today on machine learning. Classes on machine learning. Like when Google's dropped their tensors, okay. I was one of the first students to join the class.
Okay, you connected with Google. You're a student at Google.
2016, years ago.
You're an AI guy.
I'm an AI guy. Yeah. So what I do is I decompile large language models. I take the model weights and I take you guys math and I use that as new attributes. So pretty much think of it like what you say with lambda, right?
Okay, so you have to ask your LLM to take his math and tell the LLM to its mathematics logically to infinity point. Yeah,
that's exactly what he did.
Not exactly.
That's exactly what he did.
That's exactly what I did.
Okay.
So look, your coincidence, right? The metric distortion per unit pump, right? Power is lambda. The metric distortion per unit pump is lambda, right? So my engineering program is the measurement,
Okay.
right? All right, so let's scroll back up. So the wormhole geometry follows from solving Fernet. The wormhole geometry.
Which geometry?
From Fernet and Sernet. I think it's Fernet.
Oh, the Fernet, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's. I'm making sure. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not sure how doing the motion of a point particle in space, where they have ideas of curvature and torsion in one dimension. That's not directly what I'm talking about there. See, this is a field in 4-dimensional space time. He's talking about like a point particle. It's a totally different thing. Now, there may be some mathematics. I'm not saying that it's not. I mean, the ideas of torsion and curvature came from the Fernet thing. I understand that, but it's not the same. you cannot take the torsion in the world line of a particle and tie it in with the torsion field here. They're two different things.
So that's at what he called the throat.
What?
The throat of the wormhole.
Yeah, but I don't understand that.
So
he calls it, you call it anything, but I don't, okay, what you have to, but look.
Yeah.
What you have to do, you have to ask new questions in your LLM. You have to say that we have the Frenet equations there, we have Sarfati's field equations there. Can you see any important correlation or connection between them?
Can I add something here? Because the missing piece is that Jack, what Elijah did is he basically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understood is that AI, when you make AI, there's vector spaces and there's correlations between words, and those words have a topology, they have distances between each other. And what he did is he mapped that out, that information topology. He created a graph to map that out and find where things correlate, right? And then he plugged in Rossetti's math into that, and he found that it fit. Like it
yeah, but there's no way to know that's true. No physicist like me will accept that as true without really understanding it. I don't understand.
Yeah, because it's cutting it.
Okay,
so this is 3 years from now.
Wait. Everybody's talking about that.
So when you say it's cutting edge, like it sounds crazy, right? But what people are focusing on right now is building LLMs and fine-tuning LLMs.
Okay.
What we figured out is how to manipulate LLM that already exists by just removing whatever we want and extracting whatever we want like a database.
Okay, yeah.
But using the laptop.
First thing is, when he talks about torsion and curvature, is he talking about the same torsion and curvature that I showed?
Exactly that. So you take that and then you find you take information from physics, right? Say you, Einstein, right? Look at it like, okay, how similar are these things? That right there is an equation. You just literally take the math.
But that has to be shown. I don't.
It's in my paper.
Oh, it is shown.
It's 100% shown. I have graphs, all of it.
Yeah, but I don't believe it.
How can I?
Well, what you need to do is you need to prove that there was a correlation between the distances between the relatable words in a vector in an LLM vector space and actual physical reality. And there is, because when you think about it, that large language model is all the empirical data, all the scientific work of human history condensed, right? And the topology, the way it saves the information is it creates a topology, and the distances between things, those have there's information in them. There's a reason why this word is close to that word, and that reason is often something that you can actually extract conclusions from and translate that to real world. Now, that's something like what I do with art, and I'm able to make accurate predictions. But he's going deep into the actual inside of the LLM and trying to directly extract information from the topology of it. And one of the things he discovered is that there's very strong evidence that torsion has a strong physical empirical connection with physics. So that's actually good for your theory too, Jeff.
Yeah. The point is this. Look, listen, there may be a connection, but in order, you have to justify it in a way that a physicist can understand.
Scrivo la derivazione.
Okay.
Elijah, do you understand Italian?
My glasses do. I know.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have the meta glasses on, so everything is translates it, right?
Oh, it is. And it's putting text in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow, that's cool.
I'm learning design. I wish.
Elijah, meanwhile,
How much time we got?
We've got about 20 minutes before we have to amble over to lunch.
Okay.
Before you are. It's right in there, I think, are the Frenet equations, which they're correctly right, but they have nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
I wish,
No connection.
I wish he could write it more quickly than you do.
Well, I think the simple is
Yeah, I know what it's
being able to articulate.
But I know what that is. It's for a different problem, not the problem I'm worrying about.
Say, no, can you hear that? Let me hear.
So Jack, it's not a evidence issue. It's a translation problem. Being able to articulate what you got, what you discovered in a way that is understandable to physicists, to mathematicians, to whoever the audience is. Now that's where you have to be able to, and that's where AI can help because it knows which words mean the same thing, right? That's because they're actually translating something. So if you
I can't understand it. They said
Mohammed, please talk a little slower but much louder. Jack can't hear. Okay.
Well, it's also
it's not an evidence issue, it's a translation issue, and that's where AI comes in. It allows you to because the words that mean the same thing are close to each other and the AI vector spaces, you're able to basically use AI as a how do you say that, as a bridge, right?
A bridge.
So if I want to as a bridge. So if I wanted to explain advanced physics to somebody who's a supply chain manager, it can translate the physics into supply chain terms. This allows skill transferability, right? So that means you're learning from a place you already know, and your brain is making connections to things that you've already learned. That allows you to learn complex subjects much faster because you don't have to learn any really new vocabulary.
Can it also change from a supply perspective to physics?
Yeah, you can. You can translate physics into supply chain management easily with an AI if you prompt it correctly.
But the reverse, can it change it to physics for Jack?
Yeah, of course.
And others.
I know.
Yeah, and that's what I've done for Jack a lot. I've taken things and he's asked me, "Is this related? How is this related? Translate this for me. I don't get it." And then I would have the LLM translate it into pure physics, and then he would understand it immediately. He's like, "Okay, now I get it."
So Jack was saying, Rodolfo, that what you're writing, he understands what it is.
But it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
But it has to do with a different problem, not the problem that Jack is addressing.
Exactly. And the words torsion have two separate meanings.
Right.
It's the same label without different meanings.
Rodolfo, did you understand that Jack says there are two different meanings to torsion?
Yeah.
Questi sono I termini di torsione che mi ha chiesto.
Yeah, but so what?
Questo?
It's correct.
No, it's
So what?
He says it's correct, but it's addressing a different problem.
It's not the same problem.
Un altro?
It's not my problem. It's not nothing to do with the equations I wrote. Those are not the ordinary differential equations. They're not partial differential field equations. He's talking about a classical mechanical problem for particle when he's characterizing the trajectory in terms of the bending and the twisting of the trajectory. It's correct. It's nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
So
Jack, are you saying
that's correct?
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Are you saying, Jack, that whenever you present something to somebody, make sure it relates to what they care about, or else why would they care?
I didn't understand that.
Could you repeat that slowly one more time?
Basically,
it's not a good way to do it.
what you're saying is, Jack, is that somebody, whenever you're talking to somebody about something, it doesn't matter if it's correct unless it relates to what they care about. So it's not like you have to basically make it make sense to what you're doing, what your main concerns are. If he's presenting it to you as something you should take seriously or care about.
is what you're saying, basically. Right, Jack?
Yeah, look, it's physical. Let's just be exact. He's writing equations, which I know those equations, what they are. They're fine, but it's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It's just separate. It's like apples and oranges. The only thing they have in common is the label, the sound, torsion, and curvature. It's not what I mean by the torsion field. That T, his capital T there, it goes that torsion field, but it's not what I mean by it. That's not the torsion field that I'm talking about. It's a different kind. There's an analogy. He's talking about like a one-dimensional string, like a twisting string. And I'm talking about a four-dimensional space-time, a field. It's a totally different thing. The only thing they have in common, which the AI recognize, are the words torsion and curvature. Not the same thing at all. So, what happened to everybody? Lost everybody?
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I think everyone went to the water.
No. All right. So what is he doing now? I was going to
do my best to put physics for you.
I'm
So, because the main focus is right is
you talk to me.
I'm talking about that. All right, so layer one, right? Is to address what you're.
What's the effect? What is that? What is that?
I was to finish, and then I was going to start talking. But
it has to come from those partial differential equations I wrote down.
Yeah, this right here, right?
What?
Let me just write this out. We have to see it. See it. So. You can write this.
No, but it's not meaning.
No, he's tired. So now yours. This is yours, right? Lambda and L.
I don't know. What is that?
So this right here is the dimensional fixing. So you said your equation is gone, but it must can't carry a dimension of L, right? And actually,
okay, I don't understand what you wrote. What is FD? I don't understand what those things are. I don't have anything like that.
So
what I wrote is very precise. I have a coupling constant. I have the square of a spin density and a dimensional tensor. That's it. But what is all that? Where'd that come from? What is K? I don't use K and F. What is all that?
I can point it out. So K is in LLM world is
what?
I'm just gonna go right to my notes. Sorry, I haven't slept in 2 days.
See, they're using AI.
No, this is.
How much physics have you had
in my life?
Yeah.
A decent amount. A decent amount.
Oh, okay. So tell me who you are. Tell me where you are.
All right. So I'm Elijah Brown. I'm autodidact for sure.
Yeah.
I studied at Google. I took online Google courses. Right. I took.
So you studied at Google. They have an academy. Where is that? Where was it?
It was online.
Online.
Yeah. So I studied at Google.
But Google doesn't teach physics. They teach computer science.
They teach deep learning and machine learning.
Yeah, but the machine learning is not physics. Yeah.
Yeah, give him a second. Give him a second to explain himself.
You can't. The stuff I do, you cannot learn from machine learning courses.
You can use it though.
What?
You can use it though, because you use gradient descent.
I use machine learning. I use Elon Musk stuff and his stuff to do physics. I ask questions in physics, but I only know how to ask the questions because I have 70 years experience with the top physicists in the creating quantum mechanics. That's why I can do it. You can't do it. He can't. None of these guys can do it.
So, but you can take every single every theory, right? And you can put that inside a database.
Yeah. You have to know. I agree. As I do it, I use it.
And then in order to use it, you have to create a model, an LLM.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist
right
yet.
Now, what you're saying is a necessary condition it's not sufficient because none of you guys can ask the kind of question of the machine that I can ask.
But that's what we work.
Yeah,
That's
You don't have to ask. Yeah.
Monster.
That's why I
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I interject. He asked a question, which is an essential one. He sees a big difference between what he calls like basically a string in one-dimensional space,
Yeah.
whereas he's dealing with torsion in four-dimensional space-time.
So those equations he wrote are correct for that problem. It's not my problem. There's no there. I see no way to connect the two in a logical, rational.
So in a sense, he's saying this torsion has a totally different meaning in what you're doing from what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Meaning, though, I understand meaning, but what's the purpose?
What?
The purpose.
Well, he has a purpose.
No, the purpose behind like your problem, right? There's always meaning to something, but there's always meaning to something, right? Meaning, like there's meaning to like the equations, but the purpose behind it is how we get empirical about validation.
I don't need to use the word purpose.
Oh well, I'm curious though. That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the like?
Le farò una domanda io.
Yeah. I mean,
What is your
Jack, it goes to a level of understanding the epistemology of what, like, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing physics, if you're doing machine learning, if you understand that epistemology of what makes something right, wrong, what's a justified belief, what's an opinion, if you can categorize that, you can get at a level where if you are using LLMs, you can do, like, you already know what art can do because of that. But what you're saying and what I'm trying to understand is why is there any disagreement in the first place? What you're saying is that if it's not to do with your theory, you don't have time, or like you don't really care about it, right? Because you're trying to focus on something that you believe is extremely valuable, which is Manhattan Project 2.0, which is metric engineering, because it has immense effects on the world. Now, what I'm saying is that okay, maybe Rossetti's theory does not have to do with yours, but what Elijah's doing is immensely beneficial.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mohammed, hold on a second. He's slower and louder. He can't quite understand everything that you said.
Yeah,
I mean, he literally cannot hear it. He cannot hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me slow down. So basically, what Elijah's doing, it doesn't have directly to do with your theory, but it's beneficial to your capability of proving your theory faster.
Yes.
Of being able to get empirical predictions that actually fit the real world.
I don't see how any of that. I don't see how that on the board does what you said.
And well, that's why we're autodidact and you're not.
But in any case, may I intervene? We know what Jack's purpose is, but you know, now that you're here and you're having a dialogue, it shouldn't be a dialogue of the deaf. We want to know what your purpose is, because you may be dealing with a singular, or string, and it's a different version of torsion. But what's the purpose of what you're after? And maybe you could differentiate it from what you may now know more about what Jack's purpose is. So they may not be in the middle of the night, but you have a purpose. So let's hear about it.
All right. So I love your work, right? The purpose essentially is taking physics and applying it, and taking a theory idea of like, this is theoretical physics and actually doing it, right? Because the situation every time is like, let's write this math equation. Let's have these meetings. Let's talk about this. And essentially all we need is to figure out the torsion, right? All we need to figure out is like, how relatable are these two things to just move faster?
Okay,
so
but what he says about torsion,
I built on top of that.
It's not what I say about torsion. It's only the same label. It's only the same name. It's what he's saying is okay in that field, but it's a different kind of torsion. It's torsion of a one-dimensional trajectory.
So when
I'm talking about torsion of a dynamical field spread all over space-time. Talking about a different mathematical object. There was analogies. There's like one-dimensional torsion. He's talking one-dimensional torsion So I'm talking about 4-dimensional.
So I'm doing damn near 12-dimensional torsion, right? So I understand what you, but I think you don't need it. But the point is, everything is now possible. The thing is, like, I understand what you're saying, but he focused on wormholes in the throat of how you get through the torsion.
I don't see it. Wait a minute. Let's just stop.
Okay.
When I say wormhole, I mean a certain solution of those partial differential equations. I don't know what he means by the thought of a wormhole from those equations. It means nothing to me. It's not what any physicist.
How do you explain it? Would you run it?
The wormhole is a solution of the partial differential equations I wrote down. It's a solution of that. So if you can say you could tell your machine, your LLM, whatever it is, say take the Sarfati field equation and show us a traversable wormhole solution of those equations. What kind of spin density will you need to do it? Yeah, that's a valid thing. But starting from those equations, that has nothing to do with I think he's talking about some kind of a particle in the throat, but there is no particle in the throat. It's it's a totally it's not it's not okay. It's not a properly told proper. It's not a prompt that is relevant to the work that I'm doing.
So you are 100% correct, right? Right. It isn't physics, right? This is what I wrote in my notes. I prepared for this exactly. So this isn't physics, right? It's a substrate where the same geometric invariations compute, right? Rossetti's theorems is what hold it, just like you said, right? So that means that it's a substrate independent plane, right? So if the framework is genuinely geometric, then that means it doesn't care about the substrate. It just means that
No, it doesn't. What you're saying doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So it's a substrate part.
Is what?
Is it the substrate part? A substrate independent part? You understand a substrate independent? Or is that like
no, listen, you're making something simple, really complicated, overcomplicated.
Well, I just want to get to the torsion part.
Yeah.
So
like, we don't know what he means by torsion.
So he has so I took his throat ratio, right? And I applied a 7.9x throat ratio.
What?
His throat ratio. The thing that's, do you understand?
I forget throat ratio.
What I'm trying to say is, though, is you take what
doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. You're talking about an advanced concept prematurely. I don't know when he talks about throat. I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
The amount of explanation that is necessary, the amount of explanation that is necessary in order for you to understand the concept of what he's talking about, it's difficult the way he's explaining it. So let me give it a quick shot for you. What he's saying is that
say that closely. Okay, Mohammed, say what you're going to say, but say it slowly and loudly.
It doesn't matter what the starting point is. What Elijah did can be used for your theory or my theory or any other work and provide valuable information. So even though he's talking from work, he's not talking about Rossetti's work. He's talking about what he built that was able to get valuable information.
I don't see any value. Where's the value? I don't see that. There's no value.
Well, you have to wait for him to explain.
I don't see where's the value. I don't see it. I'm not saying it's not there. I don't see anything there that he wrote that has anything to do with anything I talked about. Has any relevance to it? He didn't tell me. What's the connection? And he talks about you can't.
Your RF pump.
What?
Your RF pump. Because we start.
Which pump?
The RF equation.
What's RF? RF.
The radio frequency.
The what?
RF. Romeo Frank.
What?
I got your paper, so I'm just like,
What?
That's what your RF, the RF prompt, your RF idea, like the effect of RF pump, PUMP, RF pump.
The what? IF pump, you mean?
Infrared pump?
No, RF. Sorry.
I don't have I never use the word RF. He uses RF.
Yeah,
How about you start from the gauge group, the SO2 for gauge group. Start from the gauge group and go from there and connect it to what you're doing.
If you're looking at paper A or B,
What?
Don't use paper. The paper A, you're gonna have to start from his gauge group and then connect it to explain to him how it fits in with your workout, what you can do using his gauge group and your method of information topology.
gauge group and the topology.
Yeah.
And when I say questions to the AI, right? So I'm talking to not the normal AI that everybody is, by the way, just so you're aware. It is AI, but it's something completely different. So I'm just, give me a moment. It's going to load and think and stuff like that.
Yeah. Look, the point is this, neither of you guys are communicating clearly to any physicists, okay?
Yeah.
There was something, when I looked at his paper, some of it looked kind of interesting, but it's totally unmotivated. I don't know where it comes from. And it has to be connected to the mathematics that I wrote down.
Like the Romologen problem, whatever his name is, that guy.
Say it again more slowly.
The Romologen or whatever his name was, that guy, who everybody didn't understand any of his work until Hardy.
Oh, yeah. But the point is, listen, I'm a busy guy. I got very precise things. I don't see there's any connection.
Almost cold fusion. Low energy.
It's interesting, like certain things he said sound great. Torsion barrier, it's like what I was talking about. But so he just said from reading my stuff, and he says he has that equation. It kind of looks interesting, but I don't see where he got it from. So you can't just, as somebody says, it's not good enough in science and physics to be right. You have to be right for the right reason. And I see no reason any of the, even if it turns out that they're correct.
See him?
Jenny,
You're gonna be
you have a question.
You have to train.
We're just illustrate on the board that
into $1 million.
there's no correlation between magnetics and the rest of the mind theory. If you can't demonstrate it, how do you claim you see no correlation with the
I don't see how those equations relate to the equation I wrote down. If you just show me how it is, I gotta see a rational argument. There's no connection whatsoever. They mean different things and different problems. You're talking. There's no connection between the motion of a particle in three-dimensional space.
Stuff. That's right.
The geometry of that world. There's no connection of that. So my torsion field equations from Poincare group theory. No connection whatsoever.
That's good for smoking that.
Well, I know.
Very hard.
Well, listen, what time are you supposed to be there?
We're supposed to leave in 5 minutes.
Analog.
Okay, well, let's. I have to go to my room.
Okay, okay, we'll meet you down in 5 minutes. We're gonna go to lunch now, and you'll sit right next to each other. Good luck.
Yeah.
Approach him, we don't know him. But you know if you have a relationship.
Right.
I have my phone.
Yeah.
Very open mind.
Yes.
How are you? Is it tree air?
Well,
This is not a good sound. The sound quality is so bad, and I get hardly.
I'm saying you're a treat, Jack.
What?
You're a treat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mohammed, thank you very much. And at least we did get a dialogue going.
The next time anything that happens, they have to have a closed capsule.